Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast.
The Weekly Stuff.
With Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
If it weren't for the fact that this is 1 week late, it would be weekly.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, that's what not being weekly means, is that it doesn't come out every week.
It's a weird scenario. So last week, Sean, you lost your voice.
Yeah, that's right. I lost my voice over the weekend.
And we were fully ready to record a podcast. It's just, if I'm the only one talking, you just have to, do sign language or something.
Yeah, which doesn't work that well for an audio podcast.
No.
We tried it once, but it just didn't play too well.
Right. Yeah, we've had a third person sitting in on a lot of these, but they're deaf and mute, and
it's really weird.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, planned on doing one last week, didn't happen, and then this week we were going to do it earlier in the week, and then it became giant shitstorm of busyness.
Yeah.
So, school stuff, and life stuff, and no sleep stuff. So yeah.
I developed a bizarre mutation. I shoot lasers out of my eyes. Luckily, it's voluntary, unlike Cyclops, but...
How have you been, Sean?
I've been pretty good shooting lasers out of my eyes, we've been, mostly doing that and playing some Watch Dogs, I guess, is how I've been spending my time.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, so today, obviously, busy show. We're catching up on about 2 weeks' worth of news items. As always, it's not every bit of news from all forms of media, just ones we think are interesting and pertain to things we've talked about before. So we're going to talk about some superhero movie stuff and some video game stuff, bunch of that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, we've got a couple of different topics for the kind of last half of the show.
Yeah.
We want to talk a little bit about E3. It's coming up soon. What are our predictions? What do we want to see? What's going on with that?
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that. Then we got 2 video games to talk about. First one to talk about just a little bit, which is Mario Kart 8, big release for the Wii U. I've got that game, played a bunch of it, want to talk about it a little bit. And then we're going to talk about Watch Dogs. And I think this will probably be our only major discussion of Watch Dogs.
Probably. It might come up again, but...
Yeah. Neither of us have finished the campaign. I'm very close to being done. Sean isn't.
But both of us are far enough into the campaign that we know that we don't need to finish the campaign to judge the quality of the game.
No, this is just not that kind of game, and maybe that tells you a little bit about our opinion of it, but we'll get to that later. And then at the end, we'll talk about X-Men Days of Future Past. Big superhero movie came out about 2 weeks ago. You've already heard my thoughts. My review is online. That's spoiler-free. This will be one of our spoilery discussions. It won't be as long or in-depth as a lot of them, just because I don't think there's as much to talk about with this movie.
Yeah, and it's been a while since both of us saw it, so...
And, it's not The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's not it's a piece of shit or anything.
It's not like the greatest movie ever, and it's not the worst movie ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it, but even then I feel like I can sum up my thoughts on it pretty quick. So, in any case, we'll talk about all of those things and more. So, busy podcast. Sean, you want to jump right into it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
We're starting with, the shit up to the chest level.
Yeah, we're starting with the real bombshell, the thing I've been wanting to talk about since it happened.
This will be the angriest we get on this podcast.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, we've been talking a lot since it was announced way too early that they're making a Batman vs. Superman movie.
Yeah.
A Batman-Superman crossover film. And, of course, it's been really annoying since that was announced because all of the non-news that has happened about it that people conflate into whatever. But we finally have a piece of semi-interesting news, which is that they've announced the title for the film. The title that I am fairly confident will not actually be on the movie when it comes out 2 years from now.
Nah, it's gonna
be there? Okay.
It's totally... There's no fucking way that they're changing it if this is what they came up with.
So, Sean, do you want to give the listeners the title of the Batman-Superman movie?
Okay. So the title is Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Sounds even worse when you say it out loud.
Yeah. And so, please note, I said Batman v Superman... I said that instead of Batman versus Superman because that is what the title is. It is like a law case. It is a V, not VS. So now, it's not a Godzilla movie. It's a V movie. It's Marbury v. Madison, but with Batman and Superman.
So I think we know the plot of this movie now, which is that after a lot of the destruction in New York, Batman is going to sue Superman in the Supreme Court, and this
because Batman trademarked any sort of something man superhero name.
Yes,
and because we know in this universe Batman somehow was a superhero first, even though Superman's the first superhero, and everybody knows that. I assume that's what the plot of the movie is going to be.
Yes, so it'll all be about Supreme Court deliberations. Anthony Scalia will make a cameo appearance.
Yeah. I mean, I hear they've got a very intellectual, very interesting sort of legal plot that they're developing.
Lex Luthor is basically, it's a young Lex Luthor. He's an intern for the Supreme Court. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lois Lane is covering the story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's an interesting direction to take superhero movies in general.
Yeah, we haven't seen
sort of a law drama, you know?
Exactly.
Like, if it was me, I would wait to do that with Daredevil because he's a lawyer, or She-Hulk because she's a lawyer, but...
Right.
No, Batman and Superman, so let's,
This is the worst...
I don't think there's anything more to talk about.
I think they had thrown around a lot of, like, awful rumored titles. I'm sure most of them weren't things Warner Brothers was actually looking at, but we'd heard things like... Man of Steel, Dark of Night, and all these other bad titles. And I think of all the terrible titles they could have chosen for this movie, they somehow found the worst one. It's just this perfect amalgamation of shit, where not only do you have the lazy Batman versus Superman, but they wrote it as Batman v Superman.
Yeah, it's like they fucked up, like they picked a bad title. Like Batman versus Superman already is a bad title. And it's something that they had been referring to the movie as Batman versus Superman since the announcement at Comic-Con. I remember when we talked about it then, you didn't believe that would be the title on the movie. And
of course not.
I didn't really believe it, but I remember asserting that it would be the title of the movie, even though I was like, no, they're obviously going to call it something else. Like, it'll probably be Man of Steel 2 with some subtitle that alludes to Batman, was kind of my thought on what the title actually would be. No, so they did actually go with a Batman versus Superman title, but they fucked that up. They even fucked that up, and because they didn't put versus, they put V, which is just no, that's not how you do those movies. I've seen enough fucking Godzilla movies to know it's VS, it's versus.
Yes, so they fucked that up, but again, amalgamation of shit. It's that which is bad enough, and it's got the worst subtitle, Dawn of Justice.
Which just sounds like a video game spin-off or like a bad online spin-off comic that DC would put out or something.
And here's the thing. So titles are supposed to be enticing, right, Sean? They're supposed to make you excited for the movie. When I hear Dawn of Justice, that sounds like a threat for a bad movie, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's just it feels like we are going to make the same mistake everyone has made with the movie franchise shit, which we're going to turn this movie into not a movie, but a prequel to the next big movie that's going to come down the line with this Justice League, because it's Dawn of Justice. They might as well just call it Dawn of the Justice League.
It would be like calling Iron Man 2 Iron Man pre-Avengers stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's we need to move all the pieces into place in order to have the situation we need for the beginning of the Justice League movie.
But my question is still, who do they have left to introduce? Everyone's in the Dawn of Justice movie. Yeah. So how is this not going to be a Justice League movie? Just because they don't call themselves the Justice League, the Avengers were still an Avengers movie, even though they don't call themselves the Avengers.
Yeah, I have no idea what in that movie, how they're going to reconcile introducing all these different characters. Because again, it's a new Batman also, so it's they need to establish this Batman and what this Batman is like and what his sort of status quo is, where he's coming from. It's they have a huge task on their plate just to manage this movie without even bothering to try to set up anything Justice League related.
And it's weird, I think we've had a number of superhero movies already this year between Captain America the Winter Soldier and X-Men Days of Future Past, of films where I think if you would have told me going in, how much stuff was going to be in there, I would have said, I don't know how that movie would work, and I think both of them work, for me, rather spectacularly. And that's pretty interesting. So that would give me faith if it weren't for the fact that I just don't think DC has shown that same zeal for these films. Slowly, I think the X-Men series has gotten to a point where they've accepted the comic bookiness of it, and they've gotten much better at servicing the cast and whatnot. But, I just think DC, I think they've made very, very... Christopher Nolan has made very, very good movies. Yeah. But I just don't know if they're set to make a larger universe,
Yeah, and it's something that's the Captain America 2 and X-Men Days of Future Past do have a lot of stuff and a lot of characters to manage, but they do it well because it's all self-contained and they understand where the focus is and they put the focus on the right characters at the right time. But if you have, if you're introducing Wonder Woman and Cyborg in characters that, what the fuck is the plot of the movie going to be? That, how are they going to manage to find a plot that naturally has those characters be introduced into the story and also have the main focus be on Batman and Superman? But then you also can't just say, because that's another shitty thing about the title, is even having Batman versus Superman, because they're both hero characters, and that's not going to be what, they're going to fight once in the movie, because that is the rule of superhero crossovers, is that they always fight once. If, no matter what happens, they have to, but then they always team up. They always get over it and then go fight the villain. So it's like Batman v Superman, but it's going to have a villain. So it's like so you have like your two main characters and your villain and this whole suite of side characters that actually have like nothing to do with Batman or Superman, but you have to find some way to introduce them anyways.
My worry is that what if it's going to be something like Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they take Lex Luthor and just make him the center point. Like, he brings Batman in, then he brings Wonder Woman in, then he brings Cyborg in because he's mad at Superman. He just, they make him like this lightning rod, and they just make it super... Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, is it going to be Days of Future Past, or is it going to be Amazing Spider-Man 2?
I think it's going to be Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I don't think it's going to get near that level of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, but in terms of the style of how they managed to handle it, I don't think it would be like it's probably theoretically possible, but I think it would be so difficult to do it naturally. It's like I have no idea. Like,
I don't
what the
know.
script for that movie would be.
At a baseline,
like at least with Amazing Spider-Man 2, like there could have been a movie made out of those pieces. That wouldn't have been fucking crazy. With this, I don't even know what you do.
But I mean, I would have said that before Days of Future Past. Also, then I saw the movie and it was wonderfully coherent to me.
I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't have said that about Days of Future Past because it's like you already know all the major players in that.
Yeah,
like they've all been introduced beforehand. It's like it is like a double sequel. It's a sequel to like two different movies, basically.
Right. Well, anyway, it's weird, and the one thing this movie still has going for it is it's got fairly talented people working on it all around, people who have proven that they can work in this genre well.
Although for me, that's not entirely the case.
Yeah, but we'll see. I want to be excited for some things in this movie. I want to see Ben Affleck's Batman.
Sure,
but they keep announcing things that just makes me feel like I don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's just like I don't.
And you shouldn't judge a movie by its title, but that is a bad title.
It's such a bad title, and it's just like it doesn't need to be. There are like a billion different titles that you could do. It doesn't have to be shit.
Hey, I've got an idea.
Yeah,
World's Finest.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, there's already a name for, and I get that you want Batman and Superman to be in the title, but at least World's Finest is a better subtitle.
Except here's the thing: I think their idea of wanting Batman and Superman in the title is a little weird from DC and Warner Brothers right now, because the last time they made one of these movies and put the hero's name in the title was Batman Begins.
Yeah,
they really went away from that. Dark Knight, Man of Steel.
Yeah, but I mean, Dark Knight is identifiably Batman. Man of Steel is definitely identifiably Superman. Like, everyone knows that nickname is associated with him. But I don't think like anybody has any idea what World's Finest means unless you're in comics.
Yeah.
So it's like I totally sympathize with the idea that you want Batman and Superman's names in the title. Like, I wouldn't do it personally, but if you want, like, that's why you want people in the theaters, is because, oh my god, Batman and Superman are both in a movie together. Like, guess what? You can have the title be Superman and Batman, World's Finest. Done.
Yeah.
It's better than your bullshit Dawn of Justice.
I want just straight up Superman meets Batman.
Sure, yeah.
That really, like, cheesy, like,
yeah, it's
fun.
It's like it's some like Scooby-Doo episode from the 60s where like Don Knotts guest stars.
Or Scooby-Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was a thing.
Yeah, no, like that was a whole like series of cartoons where Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet random animated people. Like Don Knotts. Yes. That's how I know who Don Knotts is from those cartoons.
I know Don Knotts from a Family Guy joke.
Sure. I think mine's better.
Okay. No, yes, definitely. Scooby-Doo is better than Family Guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, any more to say on Batman v Superman?
And that's the other thing. It's a fucking Superman movie sequel. Ostensibly, like, it's supposed to be Man of Steel 2. That is like the title it should have had when the movie was originally conceived. Is just Man of Steel 2, and then they fucked with it. Superman doesn't even get the top billing in his own fucking sequel. How fucked up is that?
Well, Sean, as you know...
I feel like I want to see some skit where it's like have Ben Affleck, and what's the dude who plays Superman now?
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, and have them together and do like a Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck routine where it's like they're arguing over top billing.
Yes. All right, well, we shall see.
Yeah.
In 2 fucking years. That's the other thing. Everybody, we know the title. I don't want to hear another goddamn word about this movie until there's a trailer 1.5 years from now.
Sure.
And then after that, not for another 6 months.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. It's not coming out for 2 years.
Do you think that they're going to get the guys who make the Ace Attorney games to make a Batman v Superman video game adaptation? Because they can do the whole law thing, you know?
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
That would be really good. Yeah. All right, let's move on, Sean.
Okay.
I'm going to move things around a little bit here. Let's stick with superhero movie stuff, okay?
All right.
So let's talk about the saga of Ant-Man.
And what a saga it is.
So I think we need to set down some history here.
Sure.
All right. Before Marvel ever became a movie studio, there's this guy named Edgar Wright, who you may know from directing Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, those movies.
And the whole Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim and Spaced, the TV series from the 90s. So, Edgar Wright, very talented director, and he, to the chagrin of all of Hollywood, from the early 2000s, wanted to make an Ant-Man movie. And he was the only person in the world who wanted to make an Ant-Man movie.
It's true, yes. Nobody wants to make an Ant-Man movie because it's Ant-Man.
And no one would take him seriously. Not the studios, not Marvel, not anyone. And eventually
Not even me.
Yeah. And eventually Edgar Wright started making a lot of good movies.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, maybe he's got something here. And then finally, Marvel became its own studio in 2006, made Iron Man in 2008. And around the time of Iron Man, they realized, we've got our own studio, we can start experimenting. Edgar Wright...
Fuck it.
Again, and I want to stress, Marvel did not make Ant-Man because they wanted to make Ant-Man. Marvel decided to make Ant-Man because there was this talented filmmaker out there who inexplicably had already written, without getting paid a dime, an Ant-Man movie and shot a pre-visualization role all by himself. This guy really wanted to direct Ant-Man.
Yeah.
So, over the course of Marvel Studios' history, from 2008 to 2014, Edgar Wright kind of worked on this with his writing partner Joe Cornish. They'd been working on Ant-Man for a long time. They were going to shoot it actually for part of Phase 2, but Edgar Wright wanted to go make The World's End, the third entry in the Cornetto trilogy. Marvel, so committed to letting Edgar Wright do this movie for them, they let him delay Ant-Man. He went and made The World's End with Simon Pegg and everybody, came back, was gearing up for pre-production on Ant-Man this year.
Cast everybody and everything.
Yes, Paul Rudd is in it, Michael Douglas is in it, Evangeline Lilly is in it, a bunch of people in it. It's all written, ready to go, was going to shoot 1 month from now. It was going to come out as the first film of Phase 3. So clearly, some creative commitment to this film.
Yeah.
And it was about to come out, and then about a week and a half ago, we heard that Edgar Wright was no longer directing Ant-Man. He and Joe Cornish, the writer, had walked off the project. They said it was an amicable split. That means there was some tension going on, and it is baffling because, again, this movie would not be going into production if it were not for Edgar Wright wanting to make this movie for about 13 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, if you're Marvel and he walks off, why are you still making Ant-Man? That's my question.
I don't know.
They
should now put on two, because Marvel has all their adjectives for the characters, like the Amazing Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, and then for a long time, Ant-Man's adjective was the irredeemable Ant-Man, because Ant-Man's an asshole, and so they should totally slap that adjective back onto this movie because it's really fitting now.
Yes. I mean, this is just weird. I think the consensus I saw on Twitter, it's certainly what I felt, it's what a lot of people were saying, was that, I love the Marvel movies, but Ant-Man was a case where I was not looking forward to it because I wanted to see the Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, I was curious. I wanted to see it because I wanted to see an Edgar Wright movie. I don't give a shit about Ant-Man.
Yeah, Edgar Wright is one of my favorite working directors. I wanted to see his take on it. And, obviously, if he had been committed to this project for over a decade, he had something good to show us, I feel like. And the reports are, none of this has been confirmed, but it sounds, it's been, sourced in a lot of places, that basically Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel, wanted some rewrites on Ant-Man, wanted to change some things, and they were just changes that Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish were not comfortable with, and so finally they split. And I just think they're in a weird scenario now, because they are as from all the reports they're showing, are really scrambling to try to get someone else to direct this.
Yeah, I feel like every single day there's a list of 3 rumored nonsense directors.
They basically they first apparently, and this is confirmed because Adam McKay said it. They offered it to Adam McKay, who is the director of a lot of Will Ferrell comedies. He's done the Anchorman movies, Talladega Nights, The Other Guys. Talented comedy director. That seemed like the only viable option I'd seen so far, because he is... Because we know... I mean, that's all I need for a Marvel director, someone who has talent and vision. He has that. We've never seen him do an action movie, but we hadn't seen the Russo brothers do that.
Yeah.
And they did Captain America.
Also, I don't know how much of an action movie Ant-Man even would be, because his power is he gets really small and talks to ants.
Yeah. So, whatever. That seemed like a decent choice, but Adam McKay decided not to do it. They've also been talking to a bunch of weird names. They've been talking to Rawson Marshall Thurber, who directed Dodgeball 15 years ago.
Duh.
And, Dodgeball is a funny movie. I don't think you hire that guy to do a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
I forget all the other names. There's just a bunch of names. Most of them are not people I would want to hire for this job. And again, the difference between, I think, and then the argument to that always would be, well, we wouldn't have thought, the Russo brothers could do Captain America. The difference is that I do have an awful lot of evidence that the Russo brothers are good directors. It was from TV.
Yeah. But then also the Russo brothers wanted to do Captain America.
Right.
They were kind of like in an Edgar Wright situation. It's like they wanted to do the movie.
Right.
It wasn't just Mike Marvel going to them.
Yeah. So it's weird right now. It's like it looks like they're just basically looking at comedy directors. That's slightly weird to me. But more than anything else, I wonder if they're going to be able to find someone to do this, certainly in a short amount of time, because the problem I would think is that what director is going to want to come in and make somebody else's movie? Because Edgar Wright's been working on this for so long, the script is completely his and Joe Cornish's, all of the pre-production is his. You're basically asking someone else to come in and make somebody else's movie, and I don't think most directors worth hiring are going to want to do that. Mm-hmm. So it's a really weird situation.
Yeah, I just don't. It's really kind of disappointing because like I said, I don't give a fuck about Ant-Man. I barely know anything about Ant-Man. I think his first comic, and it's not even it's Hank Pym Ant-Man, because I think this script is about Scott Lang Ant-Man. It's the only Ant-Man comic I've ever read that I liked was his original one, and that's it. But I really like every Edgar Wright movie I've seen, and so I wanted to see him do a fucking movie, Ant-Man or not, whatever.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to have that sort of Edgar Wright style and tone be a part of the Marvel Cinematic thing.
It's strange. The other name that surfaced today, again, no confirmations on any of this, but apparently one of the other directors they are talking to is Nicholas Stoller, who has directed a bunch of movies that are really good. He directed Neighbors, which just came out. He did Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Get Him to the Greek. He co-wrote the 2 new Muppets movies. He's a really talented guy. I could see him doing this movie, absolutely. He seems like he'd be on the right wavelength. But again, Nicholas Stoller is a director who writes his own movies and stuff. Would he want to come in and make someone else's movie?
Yeah, who knows? It makes you really curious what was the change in the script that did it.
And I just don't know why, if you're in Kevin Feige's scenario, you've been watching Edgar Wright work on this for 10 years, now you decide.
And this is also super unconfirmed, but I have heard rumors that it was some Disney execs that kind of wanted to get their fingers in the pie too and sort of mess things around. So it's who knows where the script changes kind of came from, but it's I want to know what it was, what is the thing. Obviously we don't even know what the script is, but what is the one thing? Is it some ham-fisted love interest or something threw in there or something? Yeah,
I don't know. And Edgar Wright
maybe they made Ant-Man get really tall instead of really small and turned him into Giant Man. It's because Giant Man has better powers.
Who knows? But, Edgar Wright did kind of slyly suggest something on his Twitter feed. He put out a picture of sad Buster Keaton holding a cornetto, and the implication there is, if you don't know the story of Buster Keaton, after he made all of his great films, he signed a contract with MGM, and it utterly destroyed him because the studio was interfering in all of his stuff, and he became an alcoholic and lost his family and all this stuff. And, of course, the implication of putting that picture up is that working with a studio has been a horrible experience. So it sounds like maybe this has been brewing for a while.
Yeah.
And it's too bad. It's a weird scenario all around, and I guess my question to Marvel would be, other than you've already poured some money into it, what's your investment in this right now? You don't need to have Ant-Man out there. This is like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's something you're doing for creative reasons, not financial. You're not expecting Ant-Man to make $100 million day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's I don't think Ant-Man as a character, maybe they would do something really phenomenal with it, but it's he doesn't automatically have this sort of potential to be a really interesting part of the Avengers. Even though I know Ant-Man and Hank Pym is a storied member of the Avengers, he's not an interesting component of the Avengers because his powers suck. His powers are just awful. Who gives a shit about a dude who can turn small and talk to ants, or a dude who can get really big is a more effective power, but it's not an interesting one either. So.
Yeah. And the story for this movie sounded like an interesting approach to that, where they had Hank Pym and Scott Lang, and it would be about an old Hank Pym getting his technology stolen by young Scott Lang. That sounds like an interesting dynamic you could make a movie out of, and maybe they want to salvage that story they have. But at the very least, I would say push it off, put something else in that August release slot you've got going. Give Robert Downey Jr. another $100 million and do Iron Man 4, whatever.
You can put Robert Downey Jr. in a room with an Iron Man suit. And he can just film it, and you'll make an Iron Man movie.
And I would think where they might want to go first with this, if they could, it's not possible because he's directing another movie right now. I just go get Jon Favreau again or something. It's
sure.
Someone that might be the best solution at this point. But Jon Favreau is directing a Jungle Book movie, some bad Disney movie. Like Disney has, you know how Maleficent just came out?
Yeah.
Disney is making about $1 billion of those live action animated movies. They've got a bunch of good directors just stuck doing those. They've got Alice in Wonderland 2. They've got John Favreau doing The Jungle Book. They've got Kenneth Branagh doing Cinderella. They just announced Bill Condon doing a live action Beauty and the Beast. I don't want to see a live action Jungle Book. That idea. No,
nobody needs like live action Baloo or live action Shere Khan. Like that's just nonsense.
Yeah, there was a live action Jungle Book movie back in the '90s. It was shit.
Yeah, so there you go.
Remember that?
No, I never saw it.
They showed it to us in school. Yeah.
But I'm sure it was awful
because all the animals were just animals, and at that point, it's like, well, what the hell's the point?
Yeah,
they're just like silent animals, and Mowgli's just walking around bitching about them. It's who cares?
There's no bare necessities.
Yeah. Just put the Jungle Book back in theaters. It's a good movie.
Marvel should just make the Jungle Book a part of their cinematic universe and put it where Ant-Man would be.
Baloo can be the new member of the Avengers.
Exactly, and Shere Khan can be the villain in Avengers 3.
Can we get
Avengers Age of Shere Khan?
We could make it like the Tailspin TV series where Baloo is like a freelance
he's a fighter pilot guy, like transports cargo like a smuggler.
That was a good show. It was a fun show. Shere Khan was like a businessman. It was great. All right, we got into really niche off-topic stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Ant-Man, it's all fucked right now.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen with that movie.
I have to imagine, they're not going to be ready to shoot this in a month.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. So, who knows? And I feel like if they can't shoot it now, they've got really high-profile actors. They're going to have to drop out just for scheduling stuff. Paul Rudd does not have infinite time. He is a in-demand guy. Michael Douglas probably does. He works all the time, and he somehow... I think Michael Douglas probably has clones. He's in so many movies.
I bet so. I think that's a part of the Ant-Man script, actually. I think that's what they put in that they didn't like, is that Michael Douglas has clones, and the Hank Pym has clones, so...
Michael Douglas did that movie with Steven Soderbergh about Liberace. Have Steven Soderbergh make Ant-Man. The weirdest Marvel movie.
Yeah, there we go. Done.
I would like that. Okay. In any case, more Marvel news.
All right.
They have cast Thanos.
Yes.
All right. It's sounds like it's voice only, but it's Josh Brolin has been confirmed to play Thanos. This is a very long-term game kind of thing. What I've heard is that he is a part of Guardians of the Galaxy, but he is not the main, villain.
And obviously he's not the villain of Avengers 2 because it's called Age of Ultron.
Right. So I don't think he appears in Avengers 2 at all, but he will be it sounds like they are building to him.
For people who don't know, Thanos was the big purple dude at the post-credits scene in Avengers.
Mm-hmm. So they're building up to Thanos, and it sounds like they've gotten Josh Brolin locked down, so they'll have him for the future, and that's a good choice. He's a good actor.
Yeah. And what will be great, and this is kind of maybe skipping a little bit ahead, but it's because they're making the Justice League movie, and who knows what they're actually going to do, but if I was making a Justice League movie, there's one DC villain that I would put in it, and it's a guy named Darkseid, and we've got Thanos, who basically, Darkseid and Thanos are basically just the same character, and the next X-Men movie is going to be Apocalypse, who is basically that exact character, tall, broad, blue, super powerful demigod guy. So if all those movies come out with in the same window, where it's we have fucking Darkseid and Thanos and Apocalypse all being the villain superhero movies, that would be hilarious to me. It's how did you move? Because at least those characters are kind of spread out, and when they appear in the comics, they didn't just all dump them at the same time.
Apocalypse is going to come out first. They're ahead of the game on that. That's coming out in 2016. That'll come out the same summer as Batman v Superman.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And then Avengers 3 is a ways off.
So
but I do like
that'll be great, because then everyone will think that Darkseid and Thanos are just ripping off Apocalypse, even though I think Apocalypse is the last one out of all those chronologically in the comics.
Oh well. Anyway, that's one piece of news. And then they have announced, they haven't announced this, but the reports are that Marvel has finally nailed down someone to direct their mythical Doctor Strange movie that has been in the works forever. Apparently Kevin Feige really wants to make that film. So
Doctor Strange movie could be fucking awesome if they do it right. So.
Yeah. So they've hired a guy. Well, the reports are they've hired this guy Scott Derrickson. I have never seen one of his films. He's made a bunch. He's made some horror films. He's made The Exorcism of Emily Rose. He made Sinister. He's got a movie coming out this year called Deliver Us from Evil. I'm not really familiar with his work. I know Sinister, that horror film, was highly praised. People liked that a lot. But I think that sounds like an interesting choice.
Yeah, an idea of a horror director for Doctor Strange makes a lot of sense to me, because Doctor Strange, and depending on what comics you read, but especially his original Steve Ditko stuff was all really surreal and very strange, and so hence the name Doctor Strange. I think he's from Strange Tales, so...
Yeah. And reportedly, who they have cast for Doctor Strange is Jared Leto, which, that's one of those casting choices that is just weird enough to work.
Sure. Can you bring up a picture of Jared Leto real quick? Because I feel like there is like a billion different
He looks
actors.
different in every photo he's in.
He doesn't...
Because I feel like maybe if you cut his hair and made him look right, he would look like Doctor Strange. But Doctor Strange is a character that I feel like every other male actor in Hollywood looks exactly like Doctor Strange to me in a weird way.
Well, Jared Leto is just he's a talented performer. He's kind of a weird performer. I think he's the band leader of 30 Seconds to Mars. That's most of what he does these days. But he just won an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, which he is good in. I thought that performance was kind of overrated, but
if only they could just resurrect Vincent Price in his prime. Like Vincent Price would have been the perfect Doctor Strange. But...
Well, here's the thing, though, Sean. So you're saying he doesn't look right for it now. He did in Dallas Buyers Club. He did play a transgendered woman, so he can do physical transformations. He is
okay. Well, I thought that at the end of that was going to be so. That means he can play Doctor Strange. It's like I don't think you know who Doctor Strange is. He's not a transgender woman.
My point is that he is good under makeup and prosthetics, and he doesn't look like himself at all in Dallas Buyers Club, and I'm sure that might be part of it if they want a performance with some physical transformation to it. We shall see. Again, neither of those has been confirmed by Marvel, but they sound like those are not reports people are denying or anything.
Sure, yeah. It seems like weird rumors to just come up with out of nowhere.
Here's a real. This is not confirmed though.
Okay.
Because I don't think Marvel would confirm this right now. But there's a rumor going around that, all right, backstory a little bit. Fox is in the process right now of making their Fantastic Four reboot film, directed by Josh Trank, starring a bunch of young pretty people. And that's coming out in a couple of years. And Marvel Comics, that division, is reportedly planning on canceling all of their Fantastic Four comics lines.
Yeah, and this stress that this is not anything that has been confirmed. This is people drawing inferences from some vague tweets, and specifically the Fantastic Four not being present on the cover of this big Marvel 75th anniversary thing.
Yeah.
Which is weird because anyone who knows anything about Marvel Comics, Fantastic Four #1 is the Marvel comic that created what you think of the modern Marvel age.
Right. So and the reason that has been rumored for doing this is that they don't want Fox's movie, they don't want to give extra promotion or credence to Fox's film because, Marvel Studios, I think, would really like to have some of these characters. They were in the process of negotiating, I know, to get Doctor Doom and some of the other characters back, and I think those talks broke down.
Because Galactus would be a real good villain or threat for a big Avengers movie or something like that, but obviously Fox has Galactus.
So, yeah, that would be a really big fuck you.
Yeah,
more to comics fans than anyone else.
It would be a really I'm not sure if it's I don't believe it or I just don't want to believe it, but it's fuck it, this that can't
you
can't cancel. I mean, I know that Fantastic Four is not hugely popular. Even comic books are not hugely popular, but Fantastic Four especially is not a hugely selling book like Amazing Spider-Man. But it's the fucking Fantastic Four. You can't just cancel the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four have been going since 1961, man. You can't just stop that. That'd be super fucked up.
Yeah.
As much as I would like to see Marvel have the rights to Fantastic Four, at least a bunch of Fantastic Four characters for their movies, you can't. That'd be going too far.
Yep. A little weird. All right.
Although I want to say this, I did see a really, really funny image online yesterday where I clicked on a link and the link was Marvel concedes and puts Sue Storm into the 75th anniversary cover. I was just kind of casually, oh, that's interesting. It's I clicked on it. It was I thought it was going to be a link to an article. It was just a picture of the cover, and I looked around. I was Sue Storm's not on there. And I was oh, Invisible Woman. Yeah, it really got me. It was just really, it was really fucking funny. So props to whoever the dude is who put that on Reddit because that was really fucking funny.
That was fucking great. All right, so let's do one more piece of movie news, Sean.
Okay.
All right. Star Wars. Disney is planning on making a fuck ton of Star Wars movies. They are all in on Star Wars, and
they're doing the thing that everybody's doing now, where they're Avengers made, oh my god, so much money. We should do that with this thing too.
Well, and here's the thing. They're at a point where they are compiling so many immensely talented people for their Star Wars movies they're going to make me excited against my will.
Sure.
It's a weird thing. So they announced some more casting for Star Wars 7. They've added Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones and Lupita Nyong'o, recent Oscar winner for 12 Years a Slave, to the cast of Star Wars 7, meaning that, again, Star Wars 7 has nothing but ridiculously good actors in it.
And it's probably going to be about intergalactic slavery, is my guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That would be sad.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, Twi'leks. It's really fucked up.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so more good actors on that, but they've also this seems very proactive at this point. They are putting people together for their Star Wars spin-off movies, which are going to be coming out between the episodes.
Yeah.
And honestly, given the people they're putting together for these, I might be even more interested in these if they are.
It depends on, like, have they confirmed what the movies
No, they
themselves
have.
are?
In no way they have done
spin-offs?
that. Yeah, they're just spin-offs, and here's the thing. If they're just Disney is making them do Han Solo prequel, that's terrible.
Yeah,
but
exactly. If it's like I can make whatever fucking movie I want to make in the Star Wars universe, like set in this time period, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
that's not what it's going to be.
Well, we'll see. I think it's going to be. I don't think I don't think these guys would take these jobs if it was just you're making young Han Solo. I don't think anyone wants to do that.
Big enough check will make anybody make a young Han Solo movie.
Sure, but these are both guys who I think could get any job they want in Hollywood right now. So anyway, let's back up. They have hired for the first Star Wars spin-off movie Gareth Edwards, the director of Godzilla. He got this job like the day after Godzilla came out. So he is in demand. He's attached, and Gary Whitta, who in film he wrote the script for the Book of Eli, but he's better known around these parts for writing the Walking Dead video game series.
And he was like an old writer, I think on EGM. He was an old writer on like some video game magazine I used to read forever ago. So it's really weird that it's like, oh, that guy's now fucking writing a Star Wars movie. That's crazy.
I think this is cool. That's a good, smart writer, and that's a really fucking great director based on Godzilla.
And hopefully that means Godzilla will be in the new Star Wars movie.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that Gareth Edwards, I think, after what Godzilla did, he could have had Star Wars, he could have had Godzilla sequels, he probably could have gotten whatever job he wants. You know, unless they have a really amazingly good idea for Han Solo prequel, I imagine this is something more interesting, because
it's got the story of how Godzilla became a member of the Jedi Council.
Sure. Now I'm imagining him in the robe.
Exactly,
and, holding a lightsaber in his tiny arms. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so anyway, let's see.
You have no idea how high his fucking midichlorian count is. It is through the goddamn roof.
Hopefully we will never hear the word midichlorian again in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they have also hired Josh Trank to direct the second of the Star Wars spin-off movies, which means Josh Trank, as someone said on Twitter the other day, has insane job security at the moment, because he's in the middle of directing a Fantastic Four movie, and he signed on to do a Star Wars movie. That's a lot of big movies for one guy to be having. So, you know, they are hiring people who are talented and who I can easily see fitting into the Star Wars universe, and hopefully they get to do cool stuff. You know, it seems to me like they are putting their money where their mouth is. They are hiring. They're not just churning these out and getting, you know, company men to come in and do these movies. Mm-hmm. And that gives me some amount of faith, because I think they very easily could have announced, you know, whatever, you know, live-action Disney directors they have. I don't know, the dude who did Maleficent or something to come in and do these. Or, you know, God forbidding, the Tim Burton Star Wars movie or something.
Oh, God.
But you know Disney would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know Tim Burton is a talentless hack at this point, so he would do whatever. It's just, So thank God we're not getting Tim Burton Star Wars.
Although it would be great to see Johnny Depp play Wookiee. I would totally see that. I'd see that in a movie.
All right. So that's all for movies.
Okay.
One bit of TV news.
Okay, TV.
The only TV we talk about on this show.
I think they only make one TV show, right? It's just like nothing's on TV for most of the year.
Doctor Who!
Doctor Who?
The return of Doctor Who for Series 8. For Series 34 overall.
34, yeah.
With Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor. Kind of the 15th Doctor, but who cares?
Yeah.
He's the 12th Doctor. We got Claire coming back. We got Stephen Moffat coming back. Series 8 premiering this August. Boom. We know it. We know when to expect it. Sooner rather than later. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get to... this podcast doesn't feel right when we don't get to talk about Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I still have not seen what his fucking costume is. I've managed to go this long, so...
Yes, so don't...
It's like I have like an end date. It's like...
The finish line is in sight.
Exactly. So it's like it's not just this eternal thing of like I have to avoid any like discussion of Doctor Who anywhere, or I might end up seeing the costume and I don't want to.
Yes, so we don't have that long to wait. It's this August, and we're going to get 13 episodes straight through. Some of the speculation I've seen right now is that the finale will be the Christmas special. That 13 will be the Christmas special,
that's fine.
Which would make sense. But whatever, I'm just psyched. I want to see the new Doctor. It sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in how the show is going to be when it comes back.
Yeah, me too.
But other than that, there's really nothing to talk about. So yay, Doctor Who. Let's do a couple of pieces of video game news.
All right. In video games, Jonathan, what is going on?
Well, a couple of things. We've got some random stuff to talk about right here, but I just saw some... God, what was that? Okay.
I don't know.
My bookmarks, I just hit the wrong bookmark. But let's go with this one. PS4.
Yes, the PlayStation 4, a console you and I both own.
Good console. And it apparently, as of 23rd of May, has already become profitable for Sony. CEO Kaz Hirai said at a corporate strategy meeting this week, this is from IGN, that the PS4 launch has been hugely successful. Notes Sony needs to continue growing the install base, currently at around 7 million, but from a profitability perspective, PS4 is also already contributing profit on a hardware unit basis. That is pretty impressive considering the PS3 took about 4 years to do that.
Yeah, like it's notorious for video game consoles that you sell each console at a loss, so like it takes a while for all that to recoup that and then have enough of an install base that you're actually making a profit. So that's great that they're making some fucking money. So
yeah, it's cool, and I mean, there's a bunch of interesting stuff going on with Sony right now in terms of success. Like they even also talked about, I think it was on the same earnings call, they talked about how they are expecting to make more off the PS4 than they did off the PS2, and that's not them saying the PS4 will sell more than the PS2. I don't think any video game console will ever do that again. That's just an insane thing that. Weird aberration.
Yeah.
But with the PS4 having all the online functionality and there being, more services to buy into and whatnot, with fewer units they can make more off the PS4. So, the video game console is not dead. It is rather thriving at the moment.
Yeah, so fuck you, all those people who for years have been putting out articles about how video games are dying and it's all mobile and social Facebook games.
Yes.
You go die in a fire because I hate those articles.
People want games.
Exactly.
As we're seeing. The numbers bear it out. All right. Funny story, Sean.
All right.
Nintendo.
That's
enough. That's the joke, right? Just Nintendo?
Sure,
no.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's a joke I've been telling for years now.
So Nintendo has a bunch of games coming out for the 3DS. They're supporting that very well. They basically have 2 games coming out for the Wii U at all throughout the year 2014.
Yeah.
One of them just came out. That's Mario Kart 8.
Mario Kart 8.
The other one is Super Smash Bros. Wii U, which doesn't come out for a very long time.
Yes.
Not until December, winter. And they have announced that in conjunction with Smash Bros. Wii U, Nintendo has revealed that you can use your GameCube controllers on it. There is an adapter.
What? GameCube controllers on a Nintendo console?
Yes.
I'd never.
So, what it is this little hub. It's got 4 GameCube ports. It plugs into your USB port on your Wii U. It actually plugs into both of your USB ports. It requires 2. I think one of them is powered and one of them is probably just the connection.
Sure.
Because they are... But the Wii U only has USB 2. So that's a little problematic. But anyway, and you plug your GameCube controllers right into there and you can use it to play Smash Bros. For the Wii U. And this is just funny to me because what it shows is that Nintendo's last console that they had a regular functional controller for was the fucking GameCube.
Yeah.
Fucking 13 years ago now, and so now on the Wii U for their next big game, they have to release a fucking USB adapter so you can put your wired old controllers into it.
Yeah, it's really weird to see the picture because if you remember back in the day, it's like you had these things called multi-taps that for like some consoles like the PS2 that you could plug in to have like more than 2 controllers or whatever. It plugged into the console. It's like I haven't seen a fucking multi-tap in like 15 years, and it's really weird. This is like, I mean, it's not the same functionality because it's not to have more controller ports. It's to have different controller ports,
right.
But it's so weird to see a picture of a modern console with a fucking multi-tap thing plugged into it. Just like, how did this happen? How have we gone back? It would be like seeing a fucking Xbox One with like a Game Shark cartridge just like nailed into it,
Yeah, it's weird. And what's super weird about this is that Nintendo does finally have a good controller for their system. It's just not the one they bundle in with it.
Yeah.
So they have the Wii U Pro controller. I've been using it
only for professional use, though.
Yes.
So people like us can't use it, unfortunately.
We
need to buy a Wii U amateur controller.
Yes. So, and if you don't know what the Wii U Pro controller is, it's just they took all the buttons from the gamepad, distilled it into an Xbox 360-esque controller, and it's a great controller. It's easily the best controller Nintendo has ever made. It's comfortable, it's light, it's got utterly insane battery life, like 80 hours. I've never needed to charge it since I bought the damn thing.
Nice.
I've been playing Mario Kart 8 with it. It's awesome. It works perfect for that game. It's a nice controller. I like using it. But it's not the pack-in controller.
Yeah.
And there's the annoyance that when you turn on your Wii U, you can't use it as the primary controller. The gamepad turns on also. And if I want to play, a non-gamepad enabled game, what I have to do is start the game, and then I go into the menu, and then I have to turn off the gamepad screen so it doesn't die, because if the gamepad loses battery power, you can no longer use your Wii U. So
it's all back to with the original Wii. If in the original Wii, if you couldn't navigate the main user interface with the GameCube controller plugged in, so you had to use the fucking Wii remote every time you.
But here's the thing: you can absolutely navigate the main user interface with the Wii U Pro controller.
But I'm just saying,
the gamepad still is. It's even weirder now.
Yeah, it's like, but it's the same concept of like, if you have these other controllers that I can use it perfectly fine on this console. You don't need to restrict it by being so oddly tied to like this really specific controller that you use. But yeah, I mean, can you bring up that thing? Does it say how much the controller thing costs, the adapter?
They have not even announced when or how they're going to be selling it. This is specifically made for a tournament they're doing. But I mean, they have said they're going to be selling it, but no pricing or anything like that.
Because I'm curious, because it's like, from my perspective, like, I wouldn't want to buy that thing because, I have this great affection for the GameCube controller. I would do it because I have 4 fucking GameCube controllers just, like, lying around somewhere at my house. It would be way cheaper to buy that adapter for, like, $50 than to buy 4 Wii U Pro controllers for, like, all my friends that if we want to play Smash Brothers together. So it's like, I actually kind of like the idea. It's really weird and came the fuck out of nowhere. But I kind of like the idea of being able to buy an adapter that lets you use your older controllers on a newer console, because it's like that would be really convenient instead of having to buy. It's like, I want a new controller for me for single player, but it's like I'm having a bunch of people over. I don't want to, because I've been thinking for a while about buying another DualShock 4 controller because I want one, because there are situations in which I want to play 2-player games with people, but it's like, it costs $60 fucking dollars. Like, I could either buy like Wolfenstein: The New Order, or I could buy a DualShock 4 controller, and it's like that decision is not quite leaned far enough into the DualShock 4 range to go buy it. So it's like, it'd be awesome if I could have some magic adapter that let me use like 360 controllers on PS4 or something.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's just this thing where also I wonder, is there anything else you're going to be able to use those GameCube controllers on? Like, will they patch their Wii emulation mode so you can again use your GameCube controllers there? That would be worth getting that thing for.
Yeah, I would guess I'd say that would probably just happen anyway, since they're like emulating the Wii OS level.
Yeah,
I imagine like I have no idea, but it seems to me like it would make more sense for that to just actually work instead of you having to program it in.
Yeah, we'll see. It's weird. And will any other Wii U games, work with it?
Yeah.
I'm honestly wondering, can Nintendo make it to Smash Bros. Wii U with the Wii U still a thing?
With the Wii U still being relevant, yeah.
Like,
Mario Kart 8 did give it a nice little bump,
But here's the thing, we'll talk about this when we get to Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 had phenomenal sales, did 1.2 million in under a week. That's big. That is, and I think a near record attach rate. Like, almost everyone who has a Wii U got Mario Kart 8. Yeah. It's incredible. But not a lot of people have Wii U's. Mm-hmm. It's still going to be the lowest selling game in the series.
Yeah, easily.
And, it's a weird thing. They've got Mario Kart 8, and they have nothing until December when Smash Bros. Comes out.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? That's you can't have a system that has literally no support for half of a year.
Yeah, because they don't have any third party stuff to sustain it. Like all the big, the new Batman game is not going to be coming out on Wii U. Nothing.
Watch Dogs isn't coming on Wii U until much later.
Yeah, and who knows if that game will ever actually materialize on Wii U, because it's they delayed that version 5 times.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it at this point. Ubisoft has canceled other pieces of DLC. Yeah. Why do I keep saying Activision? Warner Brothers canceled all the DLC for Arkham Origins. Yeah. And obviously, as you said, Arkham Knight is not coming out for it at all.
Third-party support is falling drastically. So
they're releasing nothing for Virtual Console. They're experimenting with Game Boy Advance and GBA games. But hey, here's a bright idea, Nintendo. Why don't you announce that you're bringing the entire fucking GameCube library to Virtual Console? That would make your adapter a lot more relevant.
Yeah, that is a very good point. That if all of a sudden, hey, if you want to play the best Super Smash Brothers game, Melee, on your fucking Wii U, now you can, because we're going to release it on Virtual Console.
I mean, it's like, I don't get that Nintendo is so stingy with their catalog, they won't even put it out on their own systems. Why do they not have a PSN style, every Tuesday they have multiple classic games coming out? There should be 4 or 5
for like Nintendo, there's like no end to their back library at this point.
Why are there not 5 games coming out every week emulated on there? It's not hard, Nintendo.
I don't know.
That would be enough, I think, for a lot of people to buy Wii U's and just to play the old games. It's man. Like you buy a PS Vita, and mostly I play old PSP and PS1 stuff, just because it's a great system for backwards compatibility. The Wii U could be that. I like the way they do emulation tremendously. When I actually on the couple games I have, but they don't have a lot. They only go up to Super NES.
Huh? Really? So they
No
haven't
N64.
like brought any of the N64 stuff over, because that was like
You can play
one
it-
of the main things I played on my Wii was a Virtual Console bot version of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Nope. You can still play all that stuff if you go into Wii mode.
Yeah, but no, I don't.
No, don't do that.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go see that fucking OS again.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's strange. Let's move on. Speaking of controllers, they just announced today the Xbox One controller. The drivers for PC were released. So you can now, the Xbox 360 has been sort of perennially the controller you use with a PC. Now you can use your Xbox One controller. Seems like a big step they probably needed to make there.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice that, just automatic support. Like, you can use a DualShock 4, but you have to kind of do some digging for, like, underground drivers and stuff and download that and kind of fits around with it.
And the other nice thing I saw about that is that with the Xbox One controller, you can just use your micro USB cable that you already have for it.
Nice.
So you don't need to get, like with the 360, if you wanted it to work well, you kind of had to go make sure you had a wired 360 controller.
Yeah, or there was a specific adapter you could buy if you wanted to.
Yeah. So, in any case, that's nice. The news we really care about. Persona 4, the Ultimax Ultra Suplex Hold.
Yes.
Coming out in America this fall as Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
Yeah.
It's the sequel to Persona 4 Arena, the Persona 4 fighting game / light novel. It is getting Taro Adachi.
Visual novel.
It is
visual
getting
novel and light novels are different things. So.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's a visual novel.
Right, a light novel.
A light novel is like a small Japanese novel.
There are Persona light novels too.
Well, yeah, but there's just not. If you buy Persona 4 the Ultimax Ultra Suplex Hold, you're not going to be getting a light novel with it. We should make that abundantly clear.
There's some cool DLC coming out for this game.
Yes.
Adachi DLC.
Yes.
Adachi is a character from Persona 4. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoil it, but he's a cool character.
He's a cool dude.
It's going to be fun to see that. It seems like Persona 4 Arena, they're doing a lot of interesting stuff with their crossover story, and this sounds like a fun part.
But I wonder, because, so in Persona 4, the actor Johnny Young Bosch did the voice for Adachi. Johnny Young Bosch also, I think he was the Black Ranger in the original Power Rangers. He was one of the Power Rangers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the Black Ranger. And so, but then in Persona 4 Arena and for like the anime, he voiced Narukami. And I don't know if they got anyone else to do a different voice for Adachi. So like, I don't know. I wonder if they're going to get like recast Adachi or if he's just going to like, because the voices are not that different for the two characters. So I'm curious if they're going to do anything with that.
They kept him for the Golden.
Yes, that is true. But Narukami didn't have any voice acting in the Golden.
But I think they knew Arena was coming out at that point and everything, and yeah.
I don't think that would make a difference.
That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, let's move on.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that game. I've got it pre-ordered.
They have confirmed that Ken and Koromaru are both in it, but they're like one character fighting together, which I think is a really good idea.
That's probably a good idea.
Both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I just like Koromaru.
Yeah.
Ken, who gives a shit? But Koromaru, he's awesome.
At least Ken's not like 5 years old anymore.
I hope they recast Ken. Good God, he needs a recast.
They probably would. Yeah, I would imagine so.
In any case, let's move on. Last piece of news, and this kind of creates a bit of a mini topic here. Batman Arkham Knight, which I would say was probably my most anticipated game of the year at this point, just because I love Batman so much, and these games specifically. It was going to come out this winter for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and it has been delayed to 2015, along with pretty much every other game announced for 2014.
Yeah.
Basically, the only games left.
The Order 1886 is, but at least like that one's only pushed back to February, so it's not like a big. But yeah, like
a lot of ones. The Division.
Yeah, I mean the Division. They kind of said that was for 2014, but I feel like that was like a really nebulous.
Okay, but it seems like most of the games you might have been excited about this year, they're coming out next year. We've got Destiny this year. That's kind of the big release. We've got a new Assassin's Creed in the fall, and other than that,
Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah,
I mean technically 2 Assassin's Creed because there's the other one, the last gen one too.
Yeah,
play that.
So it seems like 2014.
There's Kevin Spacey Call of Duty.
Who gives a shit? It seems like 2014 overall is going to be a fairly quiet year for games.
Kevin Spacey.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I care about the Kevin Spacey part. I care about that part.
I can get Kevin Spacey in so many other places. I don't need him in a bad Call of Duty game.
Well, I mean, but it's Kevin Spacey.
I don't care.
It's like digital Kevin Spacey.
It looked terrible. The graphics in that trailer were awful.
That makes it even better, because it's awful digital Kevin Spacey.
So, Sean, what do you make of the fact that this is going to be a pretty light year for games when all is said and done?
It's
for AAA releases, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit disappointing because I was hoping. I mean, it was already like kind of slated to be a little bit light in terms of like new releases. So yeah, like I wish there was more stuff coming out, especially because it is like kind of the first year for these consoles, and you would hope that there'd be more stuff stacked like that. But on the other hand, a lot of the stuff that is getting pushed back is more getting pushed back to like spring 2015, which is kind of a common thing nowadays. That it's like I'm kind of hoping that this is sort of prophesizing the fall of this like this like ridiculous massive chunk of games, of AAA games that always just get released between September and November, and it's just like every fucking game comes out then, and then it's a complete drought for the rest of the year. Slowly we have been making this move where there are lots of big games like drop in March and April, and like a couple of small things in over the summer, and then usually there have been like a couple of big games coming out in like August recently. So hopefully this is kind of a sign of, hey, we can spread shit out. Absolutely every game does not have to come out in the holiday season. You can push it back to other days and then give it some breathing room and have it be like a more consistent release schedule instead of everything being focused.
Yeah, it's just I agree with that. That would be good. It is a little disappointing because my PS4, I'll be playing Destiny on it. I'll be playing the new Assassin's Creed on it. But other than that, it might go a little unused this year.
Yeah, like there's still a possibility that there will be new games announced at E3 that will still come out this year. Like that happens, but
we got Drive Club.
Exactly.
Team-based racing.
I still don't know what that is.
We shall see in October.
Yeah, because it's PS Plus Drive Club.
So. Oh yeah, it'll be free.
Yeah.
All right, really nice. Well, anyway, Arkham Knight, I hope you're good when you come out.
Yeah.
It'll be a while, though.
Yes.
So in any case, let's move on to some topics, Sean.
Okay.
All right, so Sean, first thing I wanted to ask you about here is E3 is coming up.
Yes, it is.
On our next podcast, we'll probably be talking about it a little bit.
Probably, yeah.
It's starting up here pretty soon. What do you think is going to be the story of this E3, if there's going to be a story at all?
I don't know. Like, this E3 is shaping up to be really weird because, like, so many people have announced so much stuff ahead of E3. You know, like, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, they announced Mortal Kombat 10, which I love this. Like, it's just now, we're just doing it Mario Kart style. We're just going to start numbering the motherfuckers. It's like, you know, like the Halo thing that dropped, like, forever ago, like, all the announcements about all the delays, like, everything, it feels like every game company, like, you know, Call of Duty coming out ahead of E3, which that sometimes kind of happens. Like, I feel like I don't know what's going to be announced at E3 anymore because I feel like I would have expected some of those announcements to be held off for those press conferences. So I don't know if that means that everybody has a shit ton of stuff to announce at their press conferences, or if that means that a lot of the big companies are kind of deciding to, kind of like with the thing about the fall season, to sort of move away from dropping everything at E3. And so, you know, like Nintendo doesn't have a press conference, and they didn't have a press conference last year. I wonder if the other companies are kind of thinking about that route of not making E3 so important and sort of like owning that sort of kind of event themselves and dropping that information themselves so that they can totally control it and go that route. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, that could be beneficial for Sony and Microsoft because they're still doing a good job of getting the word out on their stuff to a broad audience. For Nintendo, I think it's been slightly ruinous for them, the way they have kind of stopped interacting with anybody but their fan base.
Yeah, with the Nintendo Directs.
Nintendo needs to be doing an E3 press conference. They need to have that stage. They need to be showing they are playing
Yeah, like
the
when
game.
they announced the new Zelda game or whatever, like I think it would make a bigger impact if it was part of a big press conference and it was like something that was really out there. Because E3 is like the only video game thing that has any sort of penetration into like the larger news media. You know, like CNN will like run a couple of articles about stuff that got announced at E3 because like that's like the only thing. That's the only time you'll see a video game thing in that kind of publication. You know,
and at this point, you know, they're just going to announce whatever they announce through Nintendo Direct. Very few people watch Nintendo Direct, and even gaming sites are kind of giving up on reporting on all of that.
Yeah.
So it's just they need this year. If Nintendo has some crazy plan to save Nintendo, they can't say that through Nintendo Direct because they're speaking to people who already own their stuff.
Yeah.
So, but they've just decided that they are going to become as insular as they can, and whatever. I don't know why that's a business strategy they're favoring. It's clearly not working, but they're sticking to their guns.
Yeah.
But Sony and Microsoft, they're going to have their big press conferences.
Yeah.
They're both doing pretty well. I mean, I guess I would ask, Microsoft, they've made even more changes to the Xbox One brand with the lack of Kinect. Do you think that this E3 press conference will be about trying to re-solidify the identity of that console?
Probably. I'm because I still am kind of confused over the whole Kinect thing. That's just I don't know what they were doing. If they were just going to drop the Kinect like this and just say fuck it this early on in the console's lifespan, I feel like they didn't even give the Kinect a chance to take hold. So it's are they ever going to show Kinect games again? Because they only had 2 that I know of. Literally, there are only 2 Kinect games that I'm aware of that got released on the Xbox One, and that is Ubisoft's Fighter Within and Kinect Sports Rivals. Neither of those got good reviews, but Dave Tennant is the narrator in Kinect Sports Rivals, so I watched the trailer, and he was in it, so...
I would rather, watch Broadchurch or something, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a 1-minute trailer, and I saw the headline on Reddit. It was fuck it, I haven't watched David Tennant in anything in 2 weeks. I will watch him in this trailer right now.
Was he using his Scottish accent?
Yes, it was his normal Scottish. It was really weird. It's a very strange choice for narrator, is Scottish David Tennant. But
have you heard?
They did it.
Have you heard? There's that trailer for the remake of Broadchurch they're doing, where weirdly he's playing the same character, but he's an American now. It's called Grace Point. Have you seen the trailer for that?
I haven't seen that.
Oh my god! You hear his American accent and his voice. You know how David Tennant has a very high pitched voice?
Yeah.
It gets super deep when he's doing his American accent and very threatening. It sounds like Alex Hardy is a fucking asshole now.
Huh.
It's weird. You should watch the trailer. It's super, and he's saying the exact same lines from the original. Everybody is. It looks like Grace Point is just a word-for-word reshoot of... And I mean, even every camera angle is the same.
Huh.
But it's but now David Tennant has a deep voice. It's strange.
Interesting.
Back to Xbox.
Right, Xbox. So, yeah,
I think they're done with Kinect. I think they... I don't know what the upside is for them at this point now. It doesn't seem like their hearts were in it in the way they needed to be in it. Nintendo, whatever you want to say about the Wii and their stupid motion controls, Nintendo fucking believed in that for a while.
Although, on the other hand, they had no other recourse. That it's you couldn't...
drop the Wiimote.
Yeah, it's that wouldn't make any sense. Whereas, you can remove... After the fact, you can remove the Kinect. I still think it's kind of a bummer of a decision because it's there is no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no argument for buying the Xbox One over the PS4 if you don't have the Kinect. Even if I don't like the Kinect necessarily, at least it is something that the PS4 didn't have. It's all you have are your exclusives, and Sony is kicking your ass at that. They've got way more exclusives, so it's you took the only punch you had and decided to throw it away for something, so you can have a headline that says, "Oh, our CPU is 10% more powerful if we don't have to account for Kinect." It's but that's only true if you make games that then specifically cannot use the Kinect to be able to allocate that power to it. Stuff like that. That it's it seems like they probably have basically abandoned the Kinect, but that means it's I guess the only thing they have to do at E3, the only thing they can do now is just announce a bunch of exclusives. That's the only... with all the moves they've made, that's the only recourse they have. It's just fight it out with the games, because they've sort of put themselves in this weird corner where there is no unique buying point for their console if you do not have Kinect attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think... prediction right now, will Kinect come up at that conference at all on
it
a
has
game...
to.
I meant on a game demo level.
No.
They have to mention it, obviously.
They didn't have a game demo for Kinect on the stage when they announced the console, or I think even at E3 last year, because it's that was a weird thing that in terms of its use for games, the Kinect has, for Xbox One, has always been weirdly absent. Like I said, there's only 2 fucking games that I know of, and only one of them is even a first party game. The Kinect Sports Rival is the only first party Kinect game that I am conscious of coming out for Xbox One, and I don't think I don't know anybody else who even knows that Fighters Within is a game that ever came out. So
I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't Harmonix have that Fantasia one coming out?
Yes, yeah, it hasn't come out yet, but
right.
It is coming out, and I think it might be coming out for 360 as well. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, It's weird.
Fantasia Music Evolved.
So do we hear about this mythical Halo remake collection?
There's going to be a Halo announcement. It's probably, yes, like it's either that or maybe Halo 2 Anniversary, because when Major Nelson made the tweet that was like, oh, Xbox controllers now work for PC, it very specifically was a picture of an Xbox One controller hooked up into a laptop that had Halo 2 PC version running on it, which feels like that might be a tease. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I saw people making a big deal out of that, and it seems plausible to me.
I think we at the very least get Halo 2 Anniversary, because this is the anniversary year and they need to get something out. I think we might.
What Halo 2 Anniversary is going to be was like a more interesting question to me. If they keep the multiplayer and what that would mean if they did.
Because that would be creating a brand new suite for a new console, which...
Yeah, and also it would be creating this Halo multiplayer like a year before their new Halo game comes out, and it's like, do you want to sort of have your fan base be sort of fractured that way, especially because Halo 4 experienced like multiplayer population death within months of it coming out. Like, it did not sustain population at all like the other Halo games, so...
It's very strange.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Microsoft?
There will probably be a teaser for a new Gears of War. I don't know who's going to... I think maybe they did announce who's going to be developing it.
They did. It's not...
Yeah, it's like Epic is not... Epic like sold it away or whatever because they don't want to do it. And I don't think it's People Can Fly who made Judgment.
Yeah, they do have someone new developing it. I'm looking for that name right now. Why don't you go on, Sean?
Yeah, so there'll be a teaser for Gears of War.
Oh, sorry. It's Black Tusk Studios in Canada.
Oh, I think that's a new studio.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I don't remember if Black Tusk has ever done anything. So, yeah, there'll be some, like... I think it's going to be, like, a teaser trailer. I wonder if they're going to keep up the, like, pretentious sort of, like, either poem or song playing over, like this really slow downer thing... narration playing over like this really depressing trailer that Gears of War always seems to do, you know.
That's weird. All right, what about Sony? Sony feels like the big thing I think Sony needs to do this year is they need to announce some kind of exclusive that they can get out before the year's end, because otherwise they don't have any first party exclusives coming out in 2014. Infamous already came out. Order 1886 got pushed back.
Drive Club.
They've got Drive Club, but it's not
based racing.
If we're being completely honest about Drive Club, it's not going to be, it's not going to set the world on fire. So other than that, I mean, they've made a lot of the right moves. People are happy about it. The console's identity is solid. Maybe they could announce some more UI features and stuff at E3.
Sure, maybe
some updates for that.
Teasing some like really huge patch or something.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But other than that, I mean,
I think they're going to show, because I think they need to. They're going to show whatever the fuck Uncharted 4 is at this point.
They did just announce that
Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, who are the creative directors on Last of Us and like part of the creative like direction team on Uncharted 2, are now taking over for like after Amy Hennig left for Uncharted 4. So
yeah,
so
Uncharted 4 will be very dark.
Yeah, evidently, but it's like so they need to have. And I'm going to guess there's going to be some sort of a substantial component of that. Like that's going to be significant. Like latchkey thing in their presentation is going to be a big gameplay demo of the next Uncharted game, because after all the announcements of like all the people leaving Naughty Dog in the wake of Amy Hennig leaving, like they need to show that game to show people that it's like it exists and is going to be a good game. Whether or not it is going to be a good game, I don't know, but
there's a good bet on that. Yeah. So I mean, anything else you can think of that Sony will have there?
I don't know. Like I think the biggest thing they do need is like a new IP and something big that's going to come out. Yeah, this fall. Because, like you said, their like lineup of exclusive titles is really, really slim.
New Ratchet and Clank game, and they start numbering them again. So we can pick up with Ratchet and Clank like, 32.
Yeah, 12 or something.
To 12. You're lowballing that.
Maybe. Yeah.
There are a lot of Ratchet and Clank games.
There are. There's not 32.
No, there's not 32, but there are. I think
there's less than 20. There's definitely less than 20.
I'm going to look this up.
There's absolutely no way that there's more than 20 or more Ratchet and Clank games.
All right, so let's just look at this. All right, so we have in the original series we have 5 games.
Yeah.
In the future series we have 4 games. That's 9. Then we have 10, 11, 12. We have 2 mobile games. That's 15, and we have the collection. So Sean, you were much closer than me.
Yeah, and if you don't count mobile games, that's 12, and I wouldn't count mobtle games.
That's pretty impressive, Sean.
Yeah, so fuck you. I'm actually secretly a huge fan of Ratchet and Clank, and you never knew the whole time.
Okay, you've played all of these?
Yeah, I've played Ratchet and Clank, and the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones where it's like he's a Lombax, and Clank is a robot. I think he does. Does he have a British accent?
I don't remember.
I think he has a British accent.
Ratchet and Clank, I think it's called Tools of Destruction, was the first game I played on my PS3, and I haven't played it since.
Yeah, but Ratchet is definitely a Lombax.
He is. He's a cool Lombax.
He's a Lombax.
I would play more Ratchet and Clank. I like those games, but
Lombax.
Yeah. Anything else to say about E3?
What are not really I don't know.
We're going to see
EA and Ubisoft both have press conferences also. So.
I think we're going to finally hear about what this other Assassin's Creed game is, and we'll probably get a Unity
Pirates
demo
2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe Ubisoft will probably have a new big game that's like a brand new IP kind of thing.
Do they confirm they're working on Watch Dogs 2?
There may be a talk about there may be insinuate that they're probably going to talk about how well Watch Dogs has sold, and they might insinuate that
because Watch Dogs is getting annualized.
Yes,
no doubt about that. It is the highest selling.
I don't think Watch Dogs 2 is going to come out next year.
No, but I think Assassin's Creed 2 didn't come out the year after Assassin's Creed.
No.
But there's going to be a lot more Watch Dogs in the future because it sold a lot of copies.
The thing I'm most excited about is I'm curious about EA's press conference. I'm curious to see how much of their Star Wars games we're going to see because cool. EA, if people don't remember last year, they said it's we have now the license to make all these Star Wars games, and that's one thing that Amy Hennig left to do is she joined Visceral on a Star Wars project. So
yeah,
I want to see what all that is. But.
Anywhere in any of this, do we see? Is this where we finally see something about Mass Effect 4?
Maybe, yeah, Mass Effect 4. Yeah, I would guess Mass Effect 4, whatever they're going to call it, the new Mass Effect game that we know they're working on, I'll bet that will make an appearance at EA's press conference, yeah.
Yeah, because, they have not done any official confirmations about that game for a long time.
Yeah.
We're due for that, I
think.
Yeah,
it's only sort of very barely even been technically announced. We just know people are working on it, but we don't know anything else about it.
But I have to imagine they're pretty far into it at this point, just because...
Probably, yeah.
It's been a while, so I'm excited for that, so we'll see.
Oh, I'm going to make a very bold prediction. I predict that The Last Guardian, the game that's sort of been vaporware for years with Sony, I think that's going to be in their press conference for coming out on PS4. That is my guess.
Okay, so they're going to Final Fantasy 15 it?
Yeah, I think this is the year. If it doesn't happen this year, it's officially gone. There's absolutely no way Last Guardian is coming out at any point past this year. So
I think it would be amazing if that game came out and it was somehow great.
Yeah. Well, I think if it did come out, it would actually be really good.
They've had 10 years to work on it.
Yeah. I don't think it's vaporware in the same way that Duke Nukem Forever was vaporware. I think it's... I don't know. I don't know what's happening with that game, but...
But, Last Guardian was a thing where, at least Final Fantasy Versus 13, we kept hearing about it.
Sure.
It just never came out. And then this Last Guardian just dropped off the face of the earth.
But it's with Last Guardian, I feel like it's every single year, a billion different reporters ask Sony, and I can't remember his name, but the guy who's the head of that studio that's making Last Guardian, supposedly making Last Guardian, they always ask him, where the fuck is Last Guardian and what is happening with that game? And they're always like, we're still doing it. Yeah, it's still, yeah. We're not going to show anything about it. We're not going to talk about it anywhere other than specifically in these interviews when you ask us a direct question about it, but it's a thing that's happening. It's
okay, well, we shall see. I like that prediction.
I think it's this year. I think this is the year.
My bold prediction...
I think that will be their big game that comes out in fall. I'm going to say that.
All right, here's my... As long as we're going with,
sure.
big predictions, just curveball predictions.
Yeah.
All right, we've been hearing a lot about, will there be a Last of Us 2? Are they going to try to franchise Last of Us? What's going to happen? Yeah. Uncharted 4 is a Last of Us crossover where Nathan Drake is thrust into the apocalypse and has to save everyone. That's the answer.
This was a serious conversation.
I know.
And this is ridiculous. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Speaking of ridiculous...
my other big prediction is that Mario Kart 8 is going to be ported onto the Xbox One.
Okay, sure.
That's definitely going to happen. And Master Chief and the Warthog is going to be in it. So it's going to be really... I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Okay. Speaking of ridiculous, let's talk about Mario Kart 8 itself.
Okay, sure. And how great is Master Chief and the Warthog in Mario Kart 8, John?
They're the best karts.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Man,
it's like Double Dash because you get someone on the back. It's the only kart you can do Double Dash for.
Yes. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Mario Kart 8.
Sure.
This game came out on May 30th. I've been playing it since then. I've played all the tracks a couple of times, and I've done some of the online play and whatnot. I haven't gotten to do a ton of online because for a couple of days there it was completely inaccessible. I think their servers were overtaxed because Nintendo probably has one flash drive somewhere because that's all they need for Wii U online. And then finally they're like, oh god, people are playing? We have to get servers. So anyway,
fuck, did Mario Kart 8 come out? God, why did we release it on a Friday? It's like reviews for that game came out 2 weeks before it came out. It's like I thought forever that it had come out already.
Yeah.
It's like, it only very recently came out.
All right, so Mario Kart 8 has gotten rave reviews from everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the game, and I don't know what to say about it, because the first couple days I was playing it, I had a lot of fun with it, but I will say every time I've gone back to it, I've enjoyed it less. And I can't even put my finger on what it is. I'll start with the positives.
Okay.
When you boot the game up, you start playing it, this is hands down, far and away, the most beautiful game Nintendo has ever made, and honestly, it's one of the better looking games I've ever played. It looks gorgeous. Mm-hmm. If the Wii U can do what Mario Kart 8 is doing, they need to share those secrets with other developers and get people making games that look like this. It looks gorgeous. It's just the color depth and the vibrancy of everything, and the way just everything seems to pop off the screen, and the lighting effects are so good, and there are some really rich textures in the game. It runs solid at 60 frames per second, and there's never been a hiccup. If you're in 2-player mode, it's still 60 frames per second, and you have no graphical degradation. It's amazing, the technical quality of Mario Kart 8. It is very impressive. The only time you will get to sub 60 frames a second is if you add a third or fourth player, and fair enough, I would not expect that.
Split screen's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, no problems there, and I haven't played in 3 or 4 player, but in any case, so it's a really technically solid game. The only thing I would complain about there is I feel like the character models, I wish they would update them. They did a weird thing where Donkey Kong, they have completely revamped his character model. Every hair on him is individually rendered now.
Oh, nice.
They're all there. He has fur, and he looks awesome, but Mario is still just a plastic sheen.
Yeah.
And Peach is still just a plastic sheen, and that's kind of disappointing because they stick out like a sore thumb because their karts are like beautifully detailed, and all the tracks are beautifully detailed, and then you have just plastic Mario in the middle. That looks weird. I wish they would have fixed that. It does give me hope for Smash Bros. For Wii U, because if they can, make it this beautiful, and I know Masahiro Sakurai likes making more detailed character models, maybe Smash Bros. Will be the game that finally has that. But Mario Kart 8 looks great. The sound design is wonderful. It makes great use of the surround sound stage, which I really haven't heard a Nintendo game do so far. It's got really, really good music. Mario Kart games always have really fun music. It's got a good
except
soundtrack.
For Mario Kart 64, which has no music playing while you play the game.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just like this constant drone of the engine, and it's because that's like something that I forgot about until we like replayed it or whatever, like senior year in high school at someone's house. Yeah. It was just like, I haven't played this game since I was like 10, and in my mind, it always had music. It's like, there's no music at all. It's just this.
Now I remember that.
It's like, I'm losing my fucking mind playing this goddamn game.
Yeah, well, anyway, it sounds great, it looks great, it plays great. I think it has far and away the best kart customization and handling. Like, the game just feels good when you're playing it. Like, you have a bunch of options to customize your kart. So you have, like, a pool of karts and bikes and even ATVs now. And every character can access all of them. But, obviously, which character you put in one of those karts changes the feel of it. So you've got all of those. Then you also pick your wheels, which adjust things. And you pick your glider, which also adjusts things. And so you can put all that together. Thomas and I, my brother, when we play this together, we both spend a lot of time in that customization screen, just getting our karts ready before we race. And you do need to think about it, because it does affect outcomes of races and whatnot. And I think once you find something that feels good, I mean, when you're racing, you can feel those changes. It's not just, whatever kart you pick, they all race the same. It really, it matters. And I think the karts just feel good. I feel like I have more control over the track and over what I'm doing than I have in any other Mario Kart game. The sense of speed is pretty good. It moves well. It's fun to play. But, and this is where the but comes in, is that I cannot win a fucking race in this game. And I think it's just, they need to, at some point, consider balancing Mario Kart. And I know that sounds crazy.
Balance? Mario Kart? Next thing you're going to call for is balancing Super Smash Brothers. Well, ridiculous.
Balance has never been Mario Kart's strong suit.
No.
But you can go over the line. Mario Kart would not be Mario Kart if it weren't a little unbalanced. Sure. That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
But the thing that they did with Mario Kart Wii, and I will say Mario Kart 8 is a much better game than Mario Kart Wii, and I like Mario Kart Wii. I think it was a really fun game. This is an improvement. They did balance it more than that game. The problem is Mario Kart Wii jumped the racers up from 8 to 12. And within that, but they didn't make the tracks bigger or longer or anything. and they have just as many items. And in fact, Mario Kart Wii had many more items and a larger frequency of items. So Mario Kart Wii was, you were getting hit pretty much constantly, and there was no chance to ever gain any momentum. And Mario Kart Wii could be really annoying because of that. Mario Kart 8 has a very similar problem. They dialed it back a little bit. There aren't as many items. Items don't hurt you for as long. Falling off the map does not completely fuck you over. You're put back on very fast now. So they've balanced those things out a little bit. But the fact of the matter is still that if you are, I would say, below 4th, you can't get above 4th because you're in the scrum at that point. Everybody has items. You are constantly getting hit. And I am still furious to see that they have not stopped the AI from cheating. AI cheating has always been a problem in Mario Kart. They get better items. They get items spontaneously. They get spontaneous buffs and boosts. And it still happens. And it's just annoying because, like, I was playing a race the other day. Finally, I'm in first. And basically, Waluigi just got a spontaneous buff next to me and got ahead of me right over the finish line. And things just happen like that. And I've confirmed online. I've looked this stuff up. I'm not the only one thinking there are spontaneous buffs going on. They are going on. There's a lot of AI cheating still in the game. That annoys me. More than anything else, it's just, they also never miss you with items and whatnot. So again, if you're in that scrum where everyone is racing together, you are just getting hit and hit and hit and hit. And the problem is that if you're out in, I think, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, maybe the top 3 players will be jockeying with each other a little bit. But if you're in 1st and you have even a decent lead, you're not getting out of 1st. You're there. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and so I've had races where, when I say I can't win a race, it's this kind of thing where I'm either in 1st and I never see another racer and the race is super boring, or I'm in the middle of the scrum and I can't stop getting hit by red shells. So it's just frustrating on that level, and I don't know what to do about it. Maybe I just need to play the game more and learn it more, and maybe because the kart customization is so deep at this point, I just haven't found the right way to race. But it's frustrating.
But to me, like, that just sounds like, who wants that Mario Kart game? Like, out of like the idea of like, this really deep kart customization seems like a bad idea to me. This like, Mario Kart's supposed to be a party game. Like, you shouldn't have to sit down and tweak every single part on your cart in order to be able to play the game well. It's like, if I go over to your house, like, I imagine that if I just sat down, like, and we just decided to play Mario Kart together, I would be like, I don't know what any of these parts do because I didn't unlock them. Like, I wasn't here. It's like, to see the progression, like, there's just all these fucking parts. I don't know what a good cart is. And so it's like, if that's necessary for you to be able to do well, it's like, it seems like you want Mario Kart to be this pick-up-and-play racer that anyone can have fun with, just the way that Smash Brothers is this pick-up-and-play fighter that anybody can have fun with. And it's like, if it's not balanced, that's fine, because it's not balanced in just ridiculous ways. That's like, if you're bad at the game, you can still have fun and do well at it. That's why those games not being balanced works. It's not like this idea of you need to tweak all the shit and like play the game really well, and that's like how you enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think where I haven't played Mario Kart 8 in a couple of days, and my kind of frustration breaking point was I just had a series of races where I was playing split screen with Thomas, and I would go, a whole race without ever hitting anything, hitting a patch of grass, falling off, without ever, losing momentum. I'd be racing perfectly. I'd get a boost around every single fucking turn. I was mastering these tracks, and yet I was getting hit by so many goddamn items, I couldn't make any progress. Mm-hmm. And, getting hit by items is not a skill thing. You can't be good Mario Kart players don't not get hit by items. There's no strategy to that or anything. And it's just annoying. And they've done other things like, they made the blue shell fucking worse than ever. Not for 1P, they made it less bad for the first place player. Yeah. But now the blue shell goes on the floor and it'll hit everybody in its track, which is amazingly frustrating.
That is a hell of a blue shell, man.
Yeah. It's just annoying. So, yeah, I'm just not sure. I need to play more of it. I would like to go online and play more of that, because I wonder if when you're playing with all real people, and I played a little bit of online, and I actually did better there than with computer players. I was doing much better there. And I wonder if it's just a thing where Nintendo just still makes AI cheat, and that's annoying. But yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know. Like, it's maybe just me, but if I want, like, the thing I want to be really good in Mario Kart is 4-player split screen, and that's it. Like, that's if I wanted to play a Mario Kart game, that's how I would want to play it. I wouldn't want to play it just randomly online with people. That just doesn't. That sounds like the idea of that sounds like the idea of playing Super Smash Brothers online, which is not appealing to me in the slightest. It's like, I don't want to play with some random dude halfway across the world. If I want to do that, I would pick a really good, like, competitive. I would play fucking Burnout Paradise. I wouldn't play Mario Kart.
But it's it's a weird thing. I do think Mario Kart has the potential to be a good standalone game on its own. Playing one single player and stuff like that. Because I still think easily the best Mario Kart game is Mario Kart DS. And I've played all of the Mario Kart games, and I just... DS is the one I know I've sunk the most time into, but I stuck with DS longer than any other Mario Kart game, and I still go back to it a lot. Not a lot now, but several times a year just to play it. It's still it's a good Mario Kart. It's as balanced as any of those are. It's got a good sense of speed, even being on a little handheld console. It's got good tracks. There's a lot of karts, but the kart customization, as you say, isn't so deep as to be confusing. It just handles well, and Mario Kart 8 looks better and sounds better, and I think even has better courses. It has the best courses in any of Mario Kart game. They are phenomenal. The creativity on display with those courses is out of this world, and yet the DS1 trumps them all to me. And obviously you can't play the DS1 split screen, so it's a weird thing.
Except you totally should, because there are 2 fucking screens on that thing. So
yeah.
If there is ever a console on which you should be able to play split screen, it would be the DS.
Well, and I will say with DS, obviously, whenever I can, I play it with other people. Like my brother and I will hook up our DSs, or I've got cousins who have the game, and we'll play it that way, or friends, and that was fun with the DS game. But it's it's just a weird case. But maybe I'll talk about Mario Kart 8 again in another week or two if I've had a little more time with it. But
here's a question for you: how is the new Rainbow Road?
It's a good Rainbow Road. I like it. Here's my complaint, though.
Sure.
They have the N64 Rainbow Road, and that was an awesome Rainbow Road because it was this endurance test. It was super long. It was
like an 8-minute long race.
Yes.
It was ridiculous for like a lap.
It is, in Mario Kart 8, by far the shortest race in that entire game. It's like maybe the first corner of Rainbow Road from 8. Like, it ends so fast. When we crossed the finish line for the last time, I thought I was finishing the first lap of a normal length course. They just took... they call it N64 Rainbow Road. I don't know if it has anything in common with it. It's very short. It just goes by almost immediately. It's nothing. It's the one big misstep in that game. Like, that's the cool thing, is that with their retro courses, they treated them much more as, like, adaptations now than remakes. Mm-hmm. So they're all very different. Like, there's some of my favorite courses are in there, like the Tick-Tock Clock level from Mario Kart DS. It's a great course, but knowing Tick-Tock Clock from DS will not allow you to win it on Mario Kart 8 because they've changed a lot of stuff. There's a lot of new secrets and surprises. And I like that. It's a really good use of the retro format, where it's like it's familiar, but it's also very new. Their new version of Rainbow Road from N64 is decidedly inferior. So that was a little disappointing. But their new Rainbow Road is fun. It's not the most challenging Rainbow Road in the world. It's also not the easiest one. It's somewhere in the middle, but it's really visually dazzling. And you're going around the space station, and there's a lot of cool anti-gravity stuff. And
so they've in the Mario universe, they have now they have some space station that is studying the Rainbow Road, this bizarre artifact that just exists above Earth. I like that. It's like humanity is making progress in that universe, trying to figure out what the fuck Rainbow Road even is and how the fuck these people are driving carts on it.
All right. Well, in any case, that's Mario Kart 8. Sean, do you want to talk a little Watch Dogs?
Let's talk Watch Dogs.
All right. First thing to say, we are both playing this on the PS4.
Yes.
Which is apparently one of 2 consoles you can play the game on without horrible performance.
Yeah.
And even the Xbox One is at lower resolution and everything. So.
Yeah, obviously. But the PC version seems totally fucked by people who have been playing the PC version. That it seems like there's just a huge amount of optimization problems with that. So if you're someone who plays PC games, that's a thing to watch out for, I guess.
Yeah, and it's got... what I've heard is its performance on PS3 and 360 is not unplayable, but it's fairly poor. There's a lot of tearing. There's a lot of frame rate dips. Draw distance is not good, so that's a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But on the PS4 and Xbox One, apparently it's working fine. I have encountered a number of little bugs along the way.
I haven't seen too many bugs, a couple of them, but anything the kind of bugs you would expect to see in an open world game.
All right, we'll talk about that later, but... Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of stories of glitches also, game-breaking bugs.
Yeah, I've heard some that I didn't look too deep into it, but I heard some there was some ridiculous game-breaking bug that I'm not sure if it was also on the PS4, but if you access some Uplay content, there was a good chance that it would just basically kill your save file. So I didn't do that because also
Ubisoft does not give you
Uplay content.
Also, Ubisoft still doesn't give you multiple save files, which This is the problem. It was funny. My brother Thomas has just started playing GTA 5 because he hadn't been home for a while, and I have the console. We have GTA 5 on, so he started playing it. And I saw him making a save, and he had just been writing over his same save. And I'm like, "Why aren't you cycling saves, Thomas? They've got infinite slots." And he's like, "It's GTA. I don't need to do that." I'm like, "What if your save file gets corrupted?" He's like, "It's GTA. I don't need to do that." I'm like, it's a video game that gives you multiple save files. You should cycle saves.
Did you just sit him down and tell him this ancient tale of a kid named Sean who was playing a game called Assassin's Creed Revelations, and he played it for like 20 hours, and then it just decided to overwrite his save file and start over at the beginning, and then he wept, and that's the end of the story?
Cycling saves. Kids, this is a PSA, the more you know.
Yeah.
Cycle your saves.
Yeah, if a video game is considered enough to give you the opportunity to make multiple save files, fucking do it.
Yes.
Don't make my mistake, kids. Don't be like me.
Minimum of 3.
I mean, I guess it wasn't a mistake I made. It was a mistake the game fucking made. So
right. Yeah, games that do not give you multiple save files always make me a little nervous.
Yeah.
In any case, let's move on. Let's talk about Watch Dogs. So this was about as hyped as a game can be. It was announced 2 years ago at E3.
Yep. Sort of like one of the really big E3 game reveals of the past few years, where it was like a big new IP. It was very flashy. It was before the PS4 or the Xbox One were officially announced yet, and so it was clearly a next-gen game targeted to be on those consoles. But it was all sort of like hush-hush, because it was like, it's going to be on PC and on something. It's like, oh, it's the PlayStation 4 and what should hopefully be called like the Xbox 3 or something, but that was in those heady days before we knew the horrible name that they would eventually give the Xbox One.
Xbox Infinity, that was a better title.
Or the Xbox, it was the one I was a fan of. But...
Xbox 720 forever.
Yeah.
Alright, in any case, so Watch Dogs had all this hype. We've been waiting for it for years. We were excited to play it last year at the PS4 launch. It got delayed. Sean, you've played some Watch Dogs?
Yes, I have.
I've played some Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs.
What do you think of...
I just wanted to... So what is your opinion on the title of Watch Dogs? Do you think it's Watch Space Dogs, or do you go with Watch_Dogs?
Just Watch Space Dogs.
Yeah, I'm a Watch_Dogs man. Even though I think it is officially technically space, on the box art it's an underscore.
So. Right, well, I don't have the box. I bought it digitally.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well, but it's like it has the box art cover on like the PlayStation Store, so you'd still.
I didn't look at it there, but sure.
Did it? Yeah.
Automatic downloads. It's awesome.
Discs.
Okay.
I'm rocking it old school.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. In any case, Sean, you've played some Watch Dogs.
Yes.
What do you think about it so far?
I think Watch_Dogs is a good game. It is. If you should not go into it expecting it to be the game they hyped, you should never go into any video game like that, because every company wants to obviously make their product seem like it's going to be the greatest product that has ever been invented in the history of mankind. That is certainly what Watch Dogs was sort of positioned as, is like this true next-gen experience. If you are someone who, like me, has played inexplicably basically every major Ubisoft title that has come out in like the past 8 years.
This is still one of my favorite things about you. You have played every Assassin's Creed game just out of spite, out of bitterness.
I don't know why it happens. It just does. I mean, because they are good games. At the end of the day, they are good games, and I do enjoy them. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, they are good games, and I enjoy them. And Watch Dogs is just like all those other Ubisoft games. It's like they're really good, but they are also tremendously flawed in a large number of ways. And if you can look past those flaws and enjoy what's good about them, you'll have a good time. I've been having a good time with Watch Dogs, and it's not, don't go into it expecting a good story, because the best story I've seen in a Ubisoft game is Assassin's Creed 4, and that's like a decent story. It's not anything exceptional. It's like, yeah, that's like a solid story with some decent characters.
It's got an arc.
Yeah, there's no glaring, unbelievable flaw in this story. Far Cry 3 had like an unbelievable beginning that was incredible, and then just pissed it all down the drain in the most like pathetic fashion I've ever seen a game do. All the other Assassin's Creed games just have the most awful storytelling that I still don't understand how they sort of just those games got just kind of a pass by the game's reviewers. It's like, yeah, Ezio's a cool character, and it's like, you can, sure, maybe he's a cool character who doesn't do anything, has no real interesting motivation, there's no theme or core structure to any of the plot, but yeah, I guess Ezio's a cool guy. So yeah, like, if you know that the Ubisoft games have shitty stories, guess what? Watch Dogs has a shitty story. If you are annoyed by games that have a shit ton of collectibles and you don't want to play a game that has a shit ton of collectibles, well, guess what? Every Ubisoft game does that. Watch Dogs does that. Do you want a game that has, like, some fun combat? Well, every fucking Ubisoft game basically has that, and guess what? Watch Dogs has that. Like, it's exactly the game I expected it to be. It is not the game that they hyped it to be, but it never is. So I think if you go into it with that mindset, you would enjoy it. It has flaws, but, it's still fun. That's me.
I'm not sure what to say about Watch Dogs, because I am having a lot of fun with the game. I've been playing it in all of my free time since it came out, pretty much. But the moment I start to talk about it in any critical fashion, I don't have a lot of good things to say about it. And it's weird. I hated the first couple hours of Watch Dogs. I wanted my money back. I wanted to stop playing it. I only powered through because I wanted to talk about it for this podcast, and I spent $60 on it.
Yeah.
But I think this game does an atrocious job introducing itself, introducing its own systems, getting you into the world. I think it's as flawed an intro, couple of hours to a major AAA title as I've ever seen in a video game. And
you have not played Assassin's Creed 3.
Okay.
That has a way worse intro.
Well, and here's one of the things I want to say, though. Is that you have a history of playing everything Ubisoft has ever made or something. Yeah. My history with Ubisoft is Assassin's Creed 4, and that's it. Yeah. So I've played the best game they've probably ever put out. And that's it. And it was a game with I thought a really fun story. Not exceptional, but good. I had nothing less than good. It was a good story, had good characters. It was fun. I was interested in it. I never wanted to, skip over the cutscenes and ignore the story. It had great gameplay. It had a couple of systems that didn't fully pay off, but there was nothing so glaring that it brought anything down for me. Yeah. Assassin's Creed 4 is a near great package to me, if not a fully great one, because a great game is The Last of Us. It's not that, but it's a near great game, and that's where I'm coming from. And they had hyped Watch Dogs to be what seemed like maybe an evolution of Ubisoft's style or something, and they talked about all the hacking mechanics and whatnot. Hacking doesn't amount to much in the final game.
Yeah, it's the square button.
Yeah, it's the square button.
I do love that square button, though.
It's a good square button. It's DualShock 4. It feels good. Yeah. But no. So I guess that's where I was coming into this from, was that this is just, I mean, even at its best, Watch Dogs to me doesn't come close to nipping at the heels of Assassin's Creed 4. So there's that. But it's just, so that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. I didn't like Watch Dogs at first. When you realize fairly early on the story is nothing, there's nothing interesting to it. There's no interesting characters. Even the cutscenes are just. I think the dialogue is dreadfully written. At this point, I'm entertained watching the cutscenes only because the dialogue is so bad. I'm laughing at it. But early on, all of that was kind of disappointing to me. I think it has that awful tutorial mission in the stadium, and that was bad, and I didn't like it. And then you get into. Then it just drops you into the open world, and everything is there for you, including missions, side missions, and none of it is explained.
Yeah, almost. I think you can maybe go to everywhere in the open world map as from Go.
You can. I mean, I went and got all the CTOS locations.
Yeah, because it's the most open world games like Grand Theft Auto and stuff gate you to certain areas of the map to make sure you don't get overwhelmed
for a reason. Yes, yeah, and Rockstar is an expert at that. But this was you're just there And I just had my biggest frustration at first was just I didn't know how to fucking play this thing because it doesn't tell you. So it's and I assumed and this is where the hype annoyed me. I assumed because of the hype there were more complex systems to this than basic third-person combat and pressing the square button to hack things.
And driving.
Right.
Just the three systems the game has.
Right. But I think it was fair for me to assume when I got into it, maybe it was more complex than that. So I didn't just approach it as a third-person game I know how to play. I was trying to figure out, what are these complex hacking things? And it was frustrating because there really is no formal introduction to any of the game's systems. One of the things was I went to try to do one of the missions you can do is a criminal convoy where you have to fight some gang members. They're coming in cars.
Yeah, basically you have a trail that they're going to follow, and you set up along some point above that trail and have to kill everybody.
Yeah, so I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know how those worked. They just showed you the trail. They didn't really tell you what to do. I didn't have all that many weapons. I think I had an assault rifle at that point. And I still didn't even know how the cover system in the game worked because they never formally introduce you to combat in the game. They just don't. It's just you kind of are expected to get it. And so I was like, can I crouch? I can't crouch. How do I, what do I do? And it's finally I figured out, okay, it's basically, Mass Effect style.
Yeah,
you press A to
button cover, yeah.
Right, and it's great once you get it, but I kept thinking, is it is it really this simple? And then I'm like, is the hacking really I just press square and these things happen? And then
sometimes often you get a really shitty hacking minigame. Let's forget about that.
Well, yes, and we get a shitty hacking minigame here, but we'll talk about that later. So anyway, those first couple hours were frustrating for that, and then there was an hour or so of depression, just realizing this was not anything we were promised, really. And I was like, it's just, I've played this game before. I've played a third-person shooter open-world combat game. What do I need this for? And I think once I got over that hump, and I realized, okay, I cannot expect anything from the story and characters. I cannot expect this to be revolutionary. What I can expect is I can have this combat, and I can have these basic hacking things that do offer a certain unique characteristic to this game that nothing else has. And we've got an open world Chicago that is a very good open world. And then also I started building my own character, and how am I going to play this, and how am I going to approach this as an open world game. That's when I started enjoying it. Like when I chose how am I going to be a vigilante in this game. We'll talk about that later. I do something very disturbing with this game. Yeah. I know. But in any case... then I started getting into it, and it just kind of snowballed, and I started enjoying it more and more, and, I'm almost done with the game now, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's got some of the best third-person combat I've ever played in a game, third-person shooter combat. It's, I think overall this doesn't, and as you all know, I don't love GTA 5. I think overall this does not touch GTA 5.
You fell in love with it, Jonathan. Never forget that.
Shut the fuck up, Sean. If we had recorded, here's the thing: if we had recorded this Watch Dogs podcast the night after I got Watch Dogs, I would have been giving this an F and hating it. Mm-hmm. That's why I vow we're never going to do a review like that again, where we talk about the game at after 2 hours of play.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't form a hasty opinion on things. Because I had absolutely, if you had asked me after I played Watch Dogs for 2 hours what I thought of the game, I wouldn't have said anything, because it's I don't know. Okay. I don't have no fucking clue what it is.
Yeah, well, anyway. But yeah, so once I got into it, I think it's fun. I think it's got... The only comparison I was going to make to GTA 5 is that, to me, this is a vastly more satisfying shooter, and I think it's got better combat scenarios and shooting and things like that. So that's good. I think it's fun as an open-world game. There's a lot of stuff to do. And it's just, I think it's a really good game. It's unique in some ways. I think it's got a lot of flaws. It definitely, more than anything else, just has kind of a massive identity crisis and lack of central voice. But it is a fun game. There's a lot to do, and definitely has its charms. And I think once you get into that and realize what the game is and what it isn't, and play it for what it is, I enjoy Watch Dogs a lot, and I've had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, you're playing an Ubisoft game now, Jonathan. Here.
Sure.
Welcome.
Yeah,
welcome it is. The fold.
Yeah. And, I hope Assassin's Creed 4 wasn't just some massive aberration.
It probably was.
I hope we get to Assassin's Creed Unity this year, and I hope it's at that level. Because at least with...
I would not get your hopes up too high.
Well, I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, but here's what I'll say is that, Watch Dogs is a new IP. I can understand it having these basic Ubisoft problems. It's a new IP. Assassin's Creed 4 was the 7th Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, but it was but Assassin's Creed 3 had... probably the biggest, was the most similar to Watch Dogs out of all other Assassin's Creed games in terms of them just putting all this shit into the game and not really connecting, and it not really understanding what it was in any way, and it having some really good points, but it not realizing how to fully utilize those good points. Watch Dogs is a lot like Assassin's Creed 3 in a lot of ways.
We shall see then. But yeah, Watch Dogs is a good game.
Yeah, it's a good game, but it is definitely not a great one.
No, not even.
So people going in... Because there has been a pretty negative reaction to it online, and I understand that, because people did go into it expecting it to be this great, super next-gen experience, and it's you got a fun, open-world game that could fundamentally have been done on the older consoles. It just would not have looked as good. There's nothing revolutionary about it either, so anyone thinking about it being this intense next-gen experience... No, it's not that game at all.
I mean, it is the worst looking game I've played on the PS4. It just is. It doesn't look as good as. I mean, if you count out
games that AAA games that came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So AAA games. I mean, it doesn't even come close to. It doesn't even come close to Assassin's Creed 4 to me. I mean, the water effects.
I think it looks. I think I like the style of Assassin's Creed 4 more because I think Assassin's Creed 4 has more opportunity to the open ocean is a lot more pretty. But I think Watch Dogs is technically more impressive to me than.
I just think the texture quality and everything. Most of the time when I'm looking at Watch Dogs, I forget I'm looking at the PS4. I think it's got some lighting and color effects and maybe some draw distance that make it look next gen. But I mean, it looks like a last gen game, just a little.
You
shinier.
should play the last gen version of Watch Dogs.
Well, but
does not look like this.
Sure, but maybe that's one of the. How did Ubisoft, with this much time to do Watch Dogs, it's not optimized for most of the systems it's coming out on?
I mean, I think, technically speaking, this game would be incredibly difficult to do on the last gen. Even though you say it looks like a last gen game, it does not. It looks way better than this game has any right to, would on those consoles.
Okay.
There's also just a lot of stuff that it does do that, it's not revolutionary, but, the amount of destructibility in the environment is not something you'd be able to do on the old consoles.
It's okay. So anyway, let's move on. What kind of topics do we want to tackle with Watch Dogs here? Let's talk about the story a little bit.
Yeah, as much as one can.
Yeah,
sure. I should say, I might have played as much Watch Dogs as you. I don't know, because I've played a lot of Watch Dogs, but I am only 4 missions maybe into Act 2 out of 5 acts. So
that's how they divvy up the story missions.
I am barely into the. It feels like I'm barely into the story.
Yeah, and I am mostly done with the story.
But I have been spent a huge amount of time just doing random side stuff. That is by far what I've been spending my most time doing.
Right, and I think I've probably played it more than you because I have spent an immense amount of time doing side stuff. I've devoted a couple because the campaign is not long. As far as I am in the campaign, that's probably only 3 nights of playing, of solid playing. Some nights I'll say tonight I'm playing campaign, but most of the time I go in there and just stick around.
Yeah.
So whatever, but the story is. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I think the first thing you notice right out of the gate for me is that their main character, Aiden Pierce, is almost aggressively boring.
Sure. Yeah, he's incredibly generic.
Yeah. Generic, boring. The vocal performance is a caricature. It's Rorschach. It's Christian Bale Batman. It's funny on that level, but not intentionally. He's got, the very basic archetypal motivation. His, family was attacked. He wants revenge.
Yeah.
But then the basic story of the game is his family gets attacked again.
And he wants revenge and to save them.
So I'm not going into heavy spoilers with this game. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm not going to give away any of the quote unquote twists. They're not good twists, but there are some twists. But basically, the story of the game is it's set up for you to think that this game is about you going after the people who went after your family.
Yeah,
and that's the whole first act is about that. The first act is pretty boring, and I think the missions don't get good until the end of that act. But then Act 2, there is a glimmer of hope, and I think for about 5 missions in Act 2, maybe, Watch Dogs becomes a borderline interesting story because enough stuff is going on in Aiden's life, and there's enough speed to which status quos are changing and alliances are changing and sort of friendships are being made that I was invested in the story. I genuinely wanted to know what happened next. And then you realize, oh my god, Watch Dogs is going to be one enormously long fetch quest. And that's what Watch Dogs becomes. It's basically your sister gets kidnapped, your old friend is holding her hostage, and basically it's to get to saving your sister, it's okay, first I'm going to have to do this. But to do this, I'm going to have to do this, this, and this. And to do each of these things will require 3 other things.
Yeah, so it's this ridiculous flow chart that gets created of all these tasks, which is the worst thing to do in an open world game because it very quickly becomes, I'm doing this mission, but I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I know what technically is going on in the story, but I don't know how anything I'm doing is related to anything else that I've been doing in this game anymore. Which is really quickly sets in Watch Dogs.
It really quickly sets in, and the thing is, a good open world game can still have that and float on other strengths. GTA 4 has a part in the middle that is that, where you are trying to do one thing and it becomes doing a million things. The difference is GTA 4 has nothing but vibrant, entertaining characters, vibrant writing, really interesting, dialogue and things like that. So you don't really care about that as much. Mm-hmm. But in Watch Dogs, that's all there is, and you don't care about fucking one of the characters. So it just becomes this, you're kind of just going through the motions. And there are virtually no missions in this game, even when I pay attention to the cutscenes, which I usually only pay about 25% attention to the cutscenes in this game because there's nothing important being relayed. But even when I do pay attention, I get into the mission and I'm like, how does this relate to what I was just watching?
Yeah.
And I never figured it out. So it's that kind of game. The story never really goes anywhere. Once you get into, Act 4 and you're nearing the end, you realize, okay, this game was never about him going after the people who went after his family. It's about, he tries to do that, he gets sidetracked, and the entire game is the sidetrack. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I haven't finished the game. If this is all just, they're holding off on the big thing for a sequel, and he's not going to get his revenge until Game 3 or something, oh boy. Watch Dogs 1 might be it for me. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It's the story very quickly peters out. It has a brief moment of intrigue in the middle in Act 2, and then it just becomes a fetch quest. So,
Yeah,
EA.
yeah. The stories. Don't play the game for the story.
But here's one thing I'll say.
Okay.
A lot of open world games, again, GTA and some other ones combined, GTA 4, GTA 5, all the cutscenes are great. Mm-hmm. You're watching those, you're entertained, but then every mission in GTA 4, for instance, becomes you drive somewhere, you shoot someone, you drive back.
Yeah.
And that gets rote. The thing about Watch Dogs that's great is, though, even though you don't care about the story, I feel like the mission variety and the mission design is really good. I enjoy almost every mission in this game, and that's what's kept me playing the campaign, is that I think the missions are fun, and they're interesting, and they have you doing fun things and using the game's mechanics well. The missions are good.
Yeah, that is the thing, is that it is fun to play. Like, the combat is good, the driving is good. Like, the driving is not amazing, but it's good for an open world driving. It's like, the powers are fun to use. It's like, it is fun to play, but it's like, I don't find, it's not... Like, the strength that Grand Theft Auto has and what makes those games really great is that they are intensely immersive. And
yes.
that's what, like, that's how they are, these open world games. It's like, you get invested in, you get invested in the story, you get invested in the characters, you get invested in the world. And the fact that the gameplay is usually really dull doesn't really matter, because it's like, you're still having fun just being immersed in this experience. It's like, Watch Dogs is a fucking video game. Like, it is just a video game. And you know me, that I love role-playing in games and getting really invested in, like, the characters and that kind of stuff. Nope. Watch Dogs is like, whatever. If it's more convenient or more fun for me to just shoot a person as opposed to, like, peacefully subdue them, I'm just gonna fucking shoot a motherfucker. I don't care. Because it's like, this doesn't feel like a real world I'm inhabiting. These aren't, like, real people. This is all just a fucking video game. It doesn't matter. I don't have to sort of invest myself on that level to enjoy myself. I just have to have, like, this very basic level of sort of, like, satisfaction of, like, it's fun to shoot a dude. Like, whatever. Fuck it.
And I would say if you tried to do the role-playing thing of, like, what would Aiden do, the game would actively frustrate you, because part of the problem with Aiden is that he is this very inconsistent character.
Yeah, it's like, you have no idea. It's like, would Aiden kill this person, or would he just hit them in the face with his baton? I don't know.
And that's
I have no idea what he would do in any situation.
That's really my only problem with mission design also, is that the game is so schizophrenic. One mission will be, you have to do this peacefully and stealthily, and the next mission will be, you have no other option, it makes you to beat the level, kill all 30 people in this arena. And it's like, well, who is Aiden? Is he a serial killer? Is he a mass murderer? Or is he a, reluctant vigilante? I don't know. And then every choice he makes in cutscenes is stupid. So, like, it's like, if you have any ownership of the character, then he does things in cutscenes that just seem wildly out of character. He's so dumb. The plot is mostly propagated on him making dumb decisions.
Yeah, I mean, the entire, because the beginning of the game, like, what happens is his niece gets killed. And so it's like his niece gets killed because Aiden is doing all this bad shit with, like, being involved with all the hacking. And it's like you have multiple cutscenes where it's like he has conversations with his sister, like, now and in the past at the beginning of the game, where she's like, you can't be involved in this shit because you saw what happened. And he keeps on getting involved with the shit for no reason other than he wants revenge. But it's like, that doesn't... Like, you don't have any sort of concept about how he's even going about getting revenge, because it's like, you have no idea what's going on. So it's like, there should be no reason for the game to exist other than that Aiden is a fucking idiot and an awful human being, because he's like, has no sense of priority, and he just keeps on getting his family in danger, even though the thing he's supposed to be doing is protecting his family. It's like, his character motivation makes no sense.
No, and it's just, yeah, so... In any case, it's the mission design is fun and all that. One thing I'll say about the characters.
Okay.
Watch Dogs is a thoroughly racist game. I don't know if you've gotten to that yet. If you have not gotten far into Act 2, I mean, have you been introduced to Bedbug in Iraq yet?
No.
Okay. You'll see it. Okay. It gets there. There are no good black characters in the game. And by good, I just mean, like, morally good.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the things you'll notice if you go around the city and profile people is pretty much anyone you see who has done something negative or will do something negative, they are black.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, I did notice that. It's like there's definitely
it's
disproportionate, yeah.
And I also think the game does a rotten job with its female characters, but then again, it does kind of a rotten job with all of its characters.
Yeah.
So,
but it does, like, there is something that sort of rubs you the wrong way about it, using this really cliche trope of, like, harming or, like, subduing, like, basically damsel of distress trope.
Yeah.
And it uses it twice, like, in 5 missions. It's just like, there's no reason to do that. Like, I have no, like, big philosophical qualm with the damsel in distress trope when it's used in a specific story. I think it's used too much, but that's not a specific criticism to level at one story, like, whatever. But it's like, you can't use it twice. Like, that's just weird. Like, there's no reason. Like, that doesn't add to anything. It doesn't, like, build on itself. It just, like, makes you sort of step outside of it and make you realize that Aiden is an awful person, because it's like, he's the one who keeps on causing this to happen to all the people in his life. It's like, you can't stack that trope on itself. It just becomes ridiculous.
I don't think there's a really weird thing with his sister Nikki in the early part of the game where apparently she is not grieving for her daughter. She is just trying to keep Aiden in line. Like,
there is kind of a weird...
She doesn't seem to give a shit. She's just like, it happened, but, Aiden, we just gotta move on. What mother in the world has that attitude when their daughter gets killed? It's like...
But it's also sort of exacerbated by, like, at the beginning of the game, I have no idea how long it's been. Like, I don't
8 months. They have a... Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's just like... because I'm sure they had, like, a little time thing, but I didn't notice it. And so it's like... It kind of felt like it could have taken place right after... by the way Aiden was acting, or it could have been like 3 years later by the way his sister was reacting.
His sister is like totally over it.
Yeah.
She just doesn't care anymore, and all she wants is to think about Aiden's health, poor Aiden. But it's like, why are you worrying about Aiden? Fuck him, he got your daughter killed.
She's worrying about Aiden because he clearly has, based on his voice, he has fucking lung cancer, probably, so...
Right.
I'd be concerned about him too.
In any case... Let's not talk about the story. Let's talk about the game and how we play it. So I wanted to talk about how I play the game.
Sure, yeah.
Because
you're monstrous, horrible human being, yes.
Yes. So I've had a streak in games recently where I have not played games, in the evil way. Like, the story on early episodes of this podcast, I'm sure we have listeners who don't even remember this at this point, because it's been a while. But, like, Sean, you can tell the people how I played, like, Red Dead Redemption, for instance.
You would find, like, anybody or anything you walked up to, you would just mutilate it and kill it in the most horrific fashion the game would allow you to. You literally sacrificed people at churches, for God's sakes. That's not even something that ever happens anywhere in the game. You just elected to do it of your own volition. That is something that came out of you. That's not something the game prompted you to do.
Right, and Red Dead, it's a pretty complex process to sacrifice someone at an altar.
Yeah, the game doesn't, like, make that process simple.
And I would ride across the whole map too. Like, basically, it was if someone, like, yelled at me or did something, mean to me,
or
like, fought back.
Or Jewish.
No, not that.
Or women.
Don't put that on me. No,
I know the way you really play these games, Jonathan.
Yeah, so in Red Dead, I would tie them up, lasso them, take them to the church, put them on the altar, and stab them to death. Mm-hmm. But, that was Red Dead. Those were darker days for me. I kind of... When I played the Mass Effect trilogy, I played Mass Effect 1 horribly, and then I had this, like, awakening with Shepard, and I became good, and I've played good games good ever since. And then
which was, like, a year and a half ago.
Sure. And then I started playing Watch Dogs, and Watch Dogs just made me so angry, I'm like, I'm going to be a bad guy in this game. Fuck it. So here's how I play Watch Dogs, and this is what got me into the game, is I picked a specific characterization of Aiden that I was going to play, and this is how I play it. He's basically Rorschach, only more psychotic. So he is... He kills every criminal he comes in contact to. Nobody lives. That's rule number one.
And all black people and all Jewish people.
No, stop that, Sean.
Yeah.
I don't kill Jewish people in the game. I mean, I might. I just don't know it. No.
If it's not like the one tidbit of information I'm provided. Then,
yes.
Who knows?
No. But in any case, so they all die. I will even go to the extent of, like, if I'm doing a gang hideout mission or a criminal convoy mission or in the campaign missions, nobody gets left alive. I never leave the map.
Yeah, I kill them. This is
die.
Like they like give you. I don't. If it's cops, I don't, because it's like that's like.
Oh, they do. Cops die.
Just because like that seems like sometimes that would just make a bigger hassle. But I do love in a lot of the missions. It's like you can either leave or you can kill everybody. It's like, it would take me, if I go on this big car chase, it's going to take me like 5 minutes. I can kill everybody in 30 seconds with my grenade launcher. Like, let's just get this over with, game.
Right.
Like, who the fuck are you kidding? Like, come on.
So I go on that level, but then I figure, I'm a vigilante. What's my actual, like, day-to-day vigilante existence? Well, Watch Dogs has this kind of goofy feature where you can use your phone and profile everyone, all the NPCs. And
it gives you, like one specific piece of information on them, like they buy a lot of porn online. That's a lot when you get a lot, but
or you'll get stuff like frequents racist blogs, or has been convicted of child pornography or things like that. There'll be bad ones. So I'll go into a crowd, I'll profile everyone, I'll find someone who I think deserves to die. If there's an outright criminal, like someone who had committed a crime or killed something like that, they die right away. But oftentimes there's no one that bad. So then we get down to people who are racist, who frequent racist blogs, who are mean
black
to people.
Or Jewish.
No.
I'm just I know the way you think, Jonathan. I'm just trying to help you.
I'm not
express yourself
racist. The
here.
game is racist.
Sure.
In any
Keep
case,
on saying that. That's
those kind of
game.
things.
It's not you. It's games that
No.
makes you do it.
So yes, so I do that, kill all those people, and then if there's nothing than that, then I get into just the thin the gene pool thing, which is who are people that annoy me. So vegetarians, vegans, and pescatarians are first on my list.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't target Jews. I do target born again Christians.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know why I do that. But
like
yes.
people of like, are you classist? Is it like people of a certain income,
Oh,
like either
well,
like
after
upper class or lower class die?
Sometimes, like if I hack someone's bank account and it's a rich bank account and I get like $10,000, I will then probably cap them. Yes.
Why? Is there a specific reason?
Even out the odds. The poor shall rise 99%.
I don't think that would. Yeah, I don't think that would. Because especially if you're killing
Yeah.
a bunch of criminals, like they tend to come from lower socioeconomic classes because of various reasons that
Yes.
our society just doesn't understand how to deal with it, and so you're actually probably like really helping like widen that gap and like really supporting the rich at the end of the day.
Okay, well I'll kill more rich people now.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
make
but at
that
least
note.
do that. Like if
Okay.
you're gonna kill people, at least be fair.
Okay, yeah.
You know.
So I do that, and then anybody who calls the cops on me, I don't usually kill them if they're close to me.
Sometimes
but if they're...
I just shoot them in the leg. Like
Oh no!
like
If I shoot, I shoot to kill in this game. But yeah,
No, I try not to kill random civilians. Sometimes, like very occasionally, I will. Like I was doing one where I was playing because they have all these side things that give you little bonuses if you complete them. So I was playing like the game with like the 3 cups or whatever, and, like the ball. It's like you have to. It's like it actually gets pretty difficult when you get to like the highest level you need to complete in order to get the thing. And so I lost it, and I was like, fuck it, and I just like exited out and just shot the dude in the face and walked away.
yeah. No, I'll do that. And then anyone who
I
like,
only kill people who actually deserve it. I'm not a fucking monster.
and if I'm ever in a street and get hit, or if a car hits me on my motorcycle, even if I run into them, they die too. But yeah, so I am a righteous vigilante. Yes, I am basically.
You're not. You're a mass murderer.
Yes.
There's a point at which vigilante is not a term you can use anymore, Jonathan. You're a mass murderer.
The funny thing to me is, though, even if you played Aiden totally straight, you can't define him by vigilante either, because he's a selfish
Not really,
bastard
yeah.
just going after his own goals.
Yeah, because it's like that's a really weird thing where the game does position you, and I thought it was like a cool idea at first of you're like cell phone Batman. You know,
Yeah.
that's like you're going around and you have all this access to all this information, and it is an interesting question to ask. It is a pertinent question to ask in our society. Is that if you have this kind of access to information, then is it maybe the right thing to like, you know, get yourself involved in that way and become that kind of vigilante? But it's like that is not a part of the story, at least as far as I've seen, like at all. At all. You literally start the game and he's already known as the vigilante for some reason. It's like, but all you ever see him do in the story is beat up people related to either his sister then getting kidnapped or like his niece being killed before the story starts. That's it. Like you see him kill and hurt people because of that, but you never see him get involved with, address, talk about, think about like anything alluding to the fact that he has this whole vigilante existence that you supposedly are meant to be engaging in your normal gameplay, because it's constantly prompting you with, oh, there's a crime that is going to occur nearby, and there's all this shit going on. You're supposed to be the vigilante. People call you the vigilante. You're the fucking vigilante. At no point in the story is he ever a vigilante. Ever. Once. It's a revenge story, not a superhero story. It would have been way better if it was a superhero thing.
It's going to frustrate you more when you get to Act 4, because it gets even more hypocritical in that way.
Yeah, I imagine so.
So anyway, yeah, so that's how I play it. I went back to being insane in this game. Where on the level of insanity, of crazy things I've told you I've done in video games, does this whole thing rank?
I mean, that's kind of like, if you really look at it seriously, it's probably actually maybe the highest, because it's like there's some sort of like premeditated calculation to what you're doing,
Yes.
as opposed to in Red Dead Redemption, like because I'm kind of playing this a little bit the way you played Red Dead Redemption, where it's like anything that happens in the game, like in front of me, that annoys me, I feel free to react to it in a very negative fashion, in the way I wouldn't something like Red Dead Redemption, where it's like, in my mind, John Marston in Red Dead Redemption is not a character that would engage with that, so I wouldn't want to engage with it, because, again, I was really immersed in the world and the characters and that and the story and stuff. And this is like, you know, if I'm playing this stupid fucking shell game that I don't even want to play, I just want the experience boost, that's it. It's like, I lose the game, it's like, yeah, fuck it, I don't need this, and then I put it out, I'm kind of annoyed, so it's like, well, I'm just going to take out my automatic shotgun, which is my new favorite weapon in the game that I bought, And I'm just going to, like, utterly destroy this guy standing on the side of the street with a table with 3 fucking cups. Because he fucking cheated, and I know he fucking cheated. So, fuck that guy, and then just blow him away. That's the way I kind of play the game.
Yeah, no, I disturbed myself with this whole thing. But I figure, I'm righteous. I'm the hero this city deserves.
And sometimes, if I'm walking down an alleyway, I'll blow up a little steam thing on the wall and spray steam in someone's face just to be an asshole, because I think that's really funny.
Okay.
Sometimes I do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that.
But no, it's weird. Like, I take it super seriously sometimes, too. Like, I will pick a park, I'll drive to, like, a park area or something, I'll walk around, I'll spend, like, 10 minutes waiting and choosing. And then it becomes this whole thing of, like, I have to have an exit strategy, too. So, yeah.
There's one weird thing. It's actually kind of a cool idea, but I've only ever seen, like, it's only ever been utilized really in one mission, is where when you're stopped, you can, like, hit in your car. If you're stopped, you can hit, I think it's the circle button, and you can hide in your car, like turn the car off, and it's kind of like car stealth. And they introduced that in one mission where you have to like retrieve this guy.
And you never have to use it again.
Yeah, and it was like I was actually kind of like interested with that system. I would not necessarily fully bought in, but it's like that's a weird, cool idea where it's like it's basically like a normal traditional stealth thing where it's like you have cars with like cop cars with like vision cones and stuff, and you have to take back alleyways and hide in corners and hide in your car. But anyways, there's this weird thing where it's like I was doing that, and I was in that mission, and it was like I was hiding, and I was like on the side of the road and doing that whole thing, and the whole animation where he turns off the car and he sort of slinks back in his seat and looks out the window really sketchy. It's like this woman walked by like this apartment, and I just had this weird thing in my head. I was like, I totally feel like I'm stalking someone. Like, everything about that animation is like, I'm stalking out, like, inside some woman's house. So, there's an idea for you, Jonathan. If you want to take your transgressions further, you can engage in that, stalk people, hide outside their
I'm trying to,
with your car.
But here's my whole view, is that Aiden Pierce, he lost his niece, so he is just angry at the world. He wants to make sure anyone
he's lost his niece, so he's a really lonely person who wants to connect with people.
Sure.
So, you can find ways to fit any sick perversion you want to into the character, Jonathan.
Well, like my idea of why I kill every cop I come into contact with is that he hates the government because they allowed this to happen. He's an anarchist, bring down the system. So I let all the anarchists
We're learning
live.
so much about you today, Jonathan.
I don't think any of this. I wouldn't do this in real life.
You don't hate black people and Jewish people. Of course you don't.
I don't. Why do you keep implying this? I do not.
Because you obviously... Jonathan, please.
Fuck you, Sean.
Okay, so... Is there anything... What else do we want to talk about with this game?
Well, I think we should talk about some of the actual, like, side mission stuff you can do and whatnot.
Right, yeah. Because that's basically, like, the game, basically, to me, is just all the side content.
And I think we didn't really talk about why the combat is good.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's basically, if you've played the modern Splinter Cell games, Splinter Cell Conviction or Blacklist, it's basically like kind of a dialed-down version of that combat with a slow-motion mechanic added onto it, where it's basic cover. It's a nice functional cover system where it's like you can move very smoothly between different pieces of cover, and then you have your hacking powers are kind of like how your gadgets would function in Splinter Cell, where it allows you to sort of like, especially like hack like cameras and look from camera point of views, or hack things in the environment to lure guards to places or blow things up to kill people. And so you can, it's got that Ubisoft thing where you can tag people if you're looking at them through cameras or using your profiler on them and see them through walls. So it has all these mechanics like that in there that allow you to play the game in a very sort of cautious, stealthy fashion in which you like move around the environment, scan the environment, like see where people are, see where things you can use are, and set up a plan and execute on it and kill people. But the game also totally allows you, because you very quickly get a huge amount of weapons in the game, and you can carry every single weapon in the game on you at all times, that you can just go fucking crazy and kill everybody with a fucking automatic shotgun and a grenade launcher if you want to. And so, yeah, like the mechanics are very satisfying, the combat's very satisfying, although personally I think it has a lot of very interesting ideas in terms of the combat being a lot more like the Splinter Cell style that I wish, honestly, they went further with. Like, I think it's a really bad idea for them to let you hold, like, every single weapon in the game at all time. It's just like, I feel like if I'm doing like a gang hideout mission or something like that, I feel like I have to choose to make the combat more interesting than it necessarily needs to be.
I do that too,
by playing the mission in like the optimal way in terms of like efficiency, but the most fun way, which is being more stealthy and using the hacking. Where it's like you could circumvent that so easily and just run in there with a fucking assault rifle and kill everybody, and have basically no problem with it, at least on the basic difficulty.
Right, and I think one thing that kind of offsets that for me at least is that I think every weapon I've used in the game I really like. I think they're fun.
Yeah, they're all satisfying feel different.
To use, yeah, and so but one of my favorite weapons in the whole game, and the weapon I use the absolute most, is the silenced pistol.
Yeah.
And so I just go into missions. I always use the silent pistol, and it's like what I do is I'm going to use that, and that's how I go through missions. And I just kind of pretend that that's the one weapon I have.
Yeah.
And I think missions are really fun like that. And later on in the campaign, there are a couple of missions where you cannot get spotted at all. Like you could not let them see you for a second. So it would be you really can't use anything other than your silenced pistol. That would be a mistake, and unless you didn't want to kill anyone and you just snuck through, but that would be no fun. So those, I think those are really fun. And yeah, there are some missions obviously where I just get to a point where, and I feel like I'm in character at that moment where it's like, I can't fuck around with the stealth shit. Assault rifle, I'm blowing through enemies. But yeah, I definitely like just using some of the basic weapons. But then it also is fun occasionally to do a gang hideout mission and just grenade launcher it, because why not?
Because there's only 15 of them, and I don't want to I don't want to waste that opportunity on one of them. Because we should say we both agree that the gang hideout is like the best thing in the game, basically.
They're just
because it's like really concentrated, really well done. Basically, like the gang things from Far Cry 3, just in this game. It's like they're really well done, and a lot of fun because you approach them in so many different ways and be really creative with it.
Well, yeah, and I mean the combat is the best thing in Watch Dogs. They are the concentrated burst of that, and they are the best combat scenario design. So they're the best.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the criminal convoys too.
They're fun.
If you have short. They're short if you have the grenade launcher.
Which you can get really quick. Or even just like a grenade.
Yeah.
Basically take care of it for you.
But I think there's a lot of ways you can approach them, and that's fun. Basically, you have this, line that they're following, and you just pick a spot and kind of plan your attack, and I think those are fun.
Yeah. But it basically just becomes every single time I get a truck or something and block the road, and then just throw a bunch of IEDs down and then walk away, and then everything explodes. And it's like, well...
Oh, I don't do that. I actively use my grenade launcher, because it's fun.
I mean, I sometimes use the grenade launcher. Yeah. I find it's more efficient to use the IED at this point, but, like... I feel like I've done a billion criminal convoys at some point, so...
Yeah. What do you think about all they've got those fixer missions, there's like a billion of them. Some of them are interesting to me, and some of them are boring.
They tend to mostly be driving challenges, which are fine, whatever. Like, it's a nice change of pace, but it's not, they're not anything special. And it's like, they're all these, like, different types of side missions that are all just under this weird label of fixer mission, because I guess they came up with, like, 7 different mission types, but didn't want to have 7 different icons. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? As far as the driving in the game goes, I think the cars are really erratic. Sometimes they drive great, and sometimes they just do their own thing. And I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's a bug in some parts, but they just kind of just slip out from under me and do their own thing.
Yeah, to me, like, the driving is totally serviceable. It's not, like, a remarkable part of the game. One thing I do really like is I like how destructible a lot of the stuff on the side of the street is. So it's like... if you drive through, like, an outdoor cafe, you drive the fuck through an outdoor cafe, and there's just, like, tables and napkins flying everywhere. Like, that's the most sort of next-gen part of the game in a lot of ways to me, is it's just, like, the amount of random little destructible nonsense you can hit with your car is really satisfying.
No, it's good.
Makes driving on the sidewalk a lot more fun.
But what I was going to say is I think the motorcycles handle great. I love driving with the motorcycles. They're awesome. I have no complaints about them, and I mostly use motorcycles in the game.
Yeah.
But it's actually a similar split to me with GTA 5, except I felt the cars in GTA 5 were slightly more usable.
Yeah, and although I should say one thing that was kind of annoying is that I agree with you, I really like the way the motorcycles handle, and I mostly use the motorcycles also because Aiden's jacket is clearly specifically designed to be used while riding a motorcycle, but the only way to get the best motorcycle in the game is to complete this challenge where you clear out a table in Texas Hold'em, and it's like, I'm so fucking sick of playing fucking Texas Hold'em in these goddamn video games, and they always, like Far Cry 3 did it, Red Dead Redemption did it, it's like they always put something where it's like, there's something I want to get in the game, but in order to get it, I need to engage with this stupid fucking Texas Hold'em game, and it's not fun, it's not interesting, I don't want to do it, but I want the goddamn motorcycle, so I have to do it. So, fuck, just stop it. Just stop putting Texas Hold'em in every open world game ever. It doesn't need to be there, you know?
I want to have Baccarat in an open world game for once.
Sure.
Just obscure card game.
Just backgammon. Like, let's just Scrabble. Like, there's so many other games you can just put in. I have fucking open world Monopoly, for fuck's sake. I don't give a shit. Just, it's gotta not be Texas Hold'em at some point, you know?
All right. So, I mean, what are your... Let's wrap this discussion up.
Yeah, because there's not that much to say about Watch Dogs.
Final thoughts on Watch Dogs?
It's a fun game. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, it's exactly what I expected it to be, like, for, like, good and bad, and I'm enjoying it, and it is something that I actually like having this game right now, because it's something that I don't feel like I need to play really obsessively. I can just sort of pick at it, play it a couple of hours every day, and just sort of do a little side content and just sort of have fun with it. It's not something I need to get really involved with. It's just like, you know, sometimes you don't necessarily want to play the best game ever or watch the best movie ever or the best TV show ever, because that's almost kind of draining on you in a lot of ways, you know? So it's like, sometimes it's nice to just have this thing that you know isn't that good, but you can just kind of have fun with it and just spend your spare time playing that and not have to think about other stuff going on. And that's what this game is to me, and, you know, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it has an underscore in the title, and it's the first game I've ever seen do that, so kudos.
Okay. Yeah, I basically agree with you. I feel like I don't know how or even if I could recommend it at this point, just because it's going to do different things for different people. If you feel, played out on open world games like this, Watch Dogs does not have anything new for you.
Yeah.
It's, play something else. There's just plenty of other things. If you want a really good open world game, Infamous Second Son is still there for you to play.
Sure, yeah.
And it's vastly, vastly superior to this in every way imaginable.
Yeah, I agree.
But, it's a good game. I do feel like, right now for $60, I probably would err on go play a different, better game to spend that money on. There's plenty of them out there right now. But, if it comes down in price, if you can get it at a sale price someday, it's worth a look.
Yeah,
at that point.
So. Yeah.
Or if you haven't played it, just go play Assassin's Creed 4 because you get to be a pirate.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Better game.
All right. So, Sean, I'm exhausted, but we have one more thing to talk about.
All right.
X-Men.
Days
of
Future
Past.
Yep.
All right. I want to talk about this movie a little bit, but before then, I kind of, just because the X-Men series has such a kind of long and convoluted history.
Yes, it does.
Let's talk
even more so now.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit,
okay.
Because I guess I would say what my history with X-Men is that, I don't really know it as the comics or anything. I've never read X-Men comics or watched the show. I just really know it from the movies. And, I started watching them when they came out. These movies have been coming out for most of my life at this point, 14 years. The first one was in 2000. So I saw the original X-Men. I've never loved the original X-Men. And, I went back and revisited it recently. And I would not call it a bad movie because I think some of the things that make it bad...
I would call it a bad movie.
Okay.
I don't think it's... I think it's a bad movie. I think it's kind of secret. It's always been a bad movie. But
I think it has enough good acting and decent characterizations in there that, it's I wouldn't call it good either because I think it's got a lot of problems, but I also think a lot of problems come from the era in which it was made, the conditions under which it was made, and the fact that
bad movie is a bad movie.
Okay, and I just don't think it's bad, but I think it's rough now. I really can't go back and watch it. Part of it is that it feels so immensely ashamed to be a comic book movie. We've just come so much further than that. But, X2 blew my mind when it came out. I loved X2. I really thought it was a huge step up, and I loved that movie. And I still love X2. I had not watched X2 in years, and I guess I had kind of lumped it in with the original X-Men, but I went back and watched it, actually, the day I saw Days of Future Past. And X2 is still a really good movie. I think overall it's still the best film in that franchise up until Days of Future Past. There's something effortless about X2 that X-Men didn't have, and it's really one of the only films in that series that feels effortless in the way it's got a lot of characters, it builds an arc for each of them, it's got a fairly, direct, simple story, it's got really good action sequences, things like that. I think that was a really good X-Men film. Then the franchise just went off the rails for a while. The Last Stand had some decent scenes, but mostly a wash. X-Men Origins Wolverine is as bad a movie as I've ever seen. First Class is really good, but also I rewatched that recently. Good God, is that an erratic movie. That has some incredible highs, and then it has every scene with the eponymous First Class.
Right, yeah.
And
which are just the definition of dull.
Yeah, and I don't like Kevin Bacon in that movie. I think he's miscast, so there's that. And then there's the Wolverine, and the Wolverine is really good.
Yeah.
It's got kind of a disappointing ending, but, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie. So that's kind of where I'm coming from at it. But my specific reaction to Days of Future Past, which I'll talk about in a minute, comes from feeling like X-Men was this absolutely non-cohesive thing, just kind of this mess of a series. It had 3 movies I really liked, 3 movies I really didn't like, and it was just it was a part. It's I've been watching these movies since I was 8, but it was never like this series I felt like I really loved. Maybe I had some nostalgia for it at some points, but it was. I kind of went to Days of Future Past not knowing what the movie would do for me, because I don't even know what my relationship with the series is at this point, because it's such a weird series. So that's where I'm coming at Days of Future Past from.
Yeah, I guess I come from a very similar place where I have read. I've over the years I've read quite a few X-Men comics, but I've never been particularly into the X-Men. I watched the animated series a little bit when I was a kid. That's why I recommend we play the animated theme song on this episode, because it's an awesome theme. And honestly, probably my favorite X-Men thing is X-Men 2 Clone Wars on the Sega Genesis, which has nothing to do with the Star Wars Clone Wars, because it came out way before that. But that game is awesome. It's a great side-scrolling beat-em-up, and I played that all the time when I was a kid. But it's like the X-Men in comics, like there are good X-Men stories. I've never read Days of Future Past. I kind of meant to at some point, but I just never got around to it before this movie came out, because I've heard it's really great. But like, I've never been able to get into X-Men comics, because I think the X-Men comics have a problem that most of the X-Men movies do, where there are too many characters and they don't have enough of a unique identity or personality, and not enough of them are interesting for you to latch onto. So it's like there's just this big mush of like mutant superheroes and supervillains in the X-Men universe. It's like, I don't really know who they are. I kind of know some of them. I kind of know their power. I kind of know their backstory. But most of them I don't really fucking give a shit. And it's like, the X-Men mythology is so dense, and it's so removed from the rest of the Marvel continuity that you don't get, like, if you read a lot of other Marvel comics, you don't get a lot of the X-Men stuff. Like, the way, if you've just read Spider-Man comics, you'd kind of know what's going on with the Fantastic Four, at least the big shit that's going on with the Fantastic Four, because it bleeds through. The X-Men are so separated, so their own thing. It's like, with X-Men, no, I like Charles Xavier, I like Magneto, I like Wolverine. I have an affection for a lot of the original X-Men and some of the stuff that they did with those characters like Cyclops and Jean Grey. But there's also, like, 90% of every X-Men character I could give less of a shit about. And so that's kind of how I feel about X-Men. And then the X-Men movies, I kind of feel the same way, where the original X-Men, like I said, I don't think it's a good movie. Like, it's whatever. Like, you obviously have to make concessions for, like, what it could do at the time and the era it came out in, but at the end of the day, if the movie's still not fun to watch, it's not fun to watch. And even as a kid...
And I'm not saying it's fun to watch.
Yeah, but even as a kid, like, when I watched those X-Men movies, I never really cared that much. I never really engaged with them that much. I don't remember ever, like, being into X-Men or into the movies or into any of that when I was a kid. It's like, I watched them, but it's like... I did, like, I watched them, but I didn't care like I did with Spider-Man, even though, I was reading X-Men comics at the time. I was watching X-Men cartoons at the time, just like I was with Spider-Man. They never grabbed me the way that Spider-Man did. Then X2 came out, and X2 is a better movie. I should rewatch X2 because it's been a very long time since I saw it. But I still, like, I remember it being good and it being better, but I don't remember it being that good. And especially the way people are talking about it now, where like people saying that it's like better than Days of Future Past, where there are a lot of people still saying
that's ridiculous.
This is the best movie of the franchise. I'm like, I think First Class and Wolverine are both better movies from my recollection. Like, I would have to rewatch the movie to make a stronger argument about it. But it's like, as far as my remembering how much I enjoy these movies, X2 is like just above X-Men and X3. Like, it's not out of that area.
All I'll say about X2, because I was surprised by my own reaction going back to it, is that it knows what it wants to do with each of those characters, and it treats them in a way that makes all of them as interesting as they need to be for that story, and even above and beyond for some of them. I think Hugh Jackman's part in that movie is fantastic. I think more than anything else, they get Xavier and Magneto in a way in that movie where that's the movie where people have affection for Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in these roles, because they are phenomenal in it. And one of my favorite scenes in the whole franchise is Magneto in prison escaping. It's a better visualization of the powers and the characterization than a lot of the other X-Men movies. Yeah. And I think that's where it comes from. That's certainly why I like the film. And I think it's got a much more consistent and cohesive story than I think any of the other films up to Days of Future Past. Even ones I ostensibly in some ways like more, like the Wolverine. Mm-hmm. But, the X2 pays off on its own story in a way the Wolverine doesn't fully.
Yeah, sure.
So, that's all.
Yeah. So then X3 obviously is not.
Everyone was disappointed. We can move on.
Not a good movie. That's like, I still am I still hate how they just wasted so many, they finally got around to doing a bunch of the X-Men characters that actually know and like Angel and Shadowcat, and it's they're so wasted in that film. It's God fucking damn it, or fucking Beast is finally in it, but it's oh no, it's he's in it for a scene. Great. So then there's X3. That's not a good movie. I never saw X-Men Origins Wolverine. I never will, because why would you? Why would you? And Wolverine, we talked about that on the podcast. That I really like Wolverine. We both agree that the climax is very flawed and feels like it comes from a bad comic book movie, but the rest of it's great. And Hugh Jackman has always been phenomenal as Wolverine. And then X-Men First Class, I basically feel the same way you do about it. I haven't seen it since I watched it in theaters, so it's my thoughts on it are still the same there. That I think their Xavier and Magneto stuff is fantastic in First Class. A lot of the style of First Class is really great. The time period and everything they get that is really great. But it is the X-Men, the First Class themselves, where they picked characters from the comic books that some of them I didn't even know. The ones I did know were not represented. Like Havoc is supposed to be Cyclops' younger brother instead of he's grandfather. I don't know. Your use of characters that I did know, they use them in ways that I couldn't bring my affection to it. The version of Emma Frost is not anything like what I know Emma Frost being. So it's they didn't leverage on what little nostalgia I had for X-Men in that way and made really poor use of that. But and it's kind of the true of all the franchise. Is they've always gotten Wolverine really good. Other than X-Men Origins, I don't know about that, but the ones I've seen, they got Wolverine. Hugh Jackman's awesome, and their version of Wolverine is really good. Just their version of Charles Xavier has always been very interesting and well acted, and their version of Magneto has always been really interesting and well acted. So it's they've gotten those three characters, which is and I think is still mostly true of Days of Future Past. Wolverine has kind of a weird role in the movie, but it's Magneto and Xavier that are the most interesting characters, and it's kind of it's fine, but it is also a weird thing to me that that's so true of the franchise when they're not supposed to be like that as characters. They are supposed to be these sort of, Magneto is sort of the arch villain, but it's Charles Xavier is supposed to be this mentor figure, and it's they take over all the actual proper X-Men. Even Wolverine's not really much of an X-Men when you get down to it at the end of the day. It's just the X-Men feel like such a minor part of their own film franchise, but I don't care that much about the X-Men in the first place, so I don't know how that's too big of a flaw. And so it's I don't have a huge affection for the X-Men movies going into this. I don't have a huge affection for the X-Men characters, but I do have a decent affection for some of them. And I think X-Men Days of Future Past, just to give a brief overview of my thoughts on it, I thought it was a really good movie that brought the good elements of the old films in, which namely Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and then obviously keeping Hugh Jackman in there, and paid off on
the best of First Class.
Yeah, on the best of First Class. It's basically a sequel to First Class with some future stuff in it, and it's what's his name? James McAvoy is the guy who plays Charles Xavier, right? Yeah, he's back. He's great. Michael Fassbender as Magneto is fucking great.
Good.
They are really, really good in their roles, and they find really interesting, especially with Xavier. I think they find a really interesting character arc for him that really sort of makes the movie for me. And so it's a really good movie. I think it has some flaws. I don't think the action is particularly interesting, but it never has been really in the X-Men movies. It's that's not the strongest part of the film, but the character stuff is well done. It's well shot. It's interesting. But it's I'm definitely not as positive as you are, and not as positive as a lot of other people are on it, but I still think it's a good movie.
Right. And I'll just say I was really surprised by my reaction to this, because I wasn't surprised I thought it was a good movie, because the consensus on it was overwhelming enough that I was pretty sure it was going to be good going in.
Yeah.
But, a good movie and a movie that emotionally moves me are two different things. Yeah. I can watch a good movie and feel cold towards it. That can happen.
Yeah, that definitely happens.
Okay. And what I felt with this, and I think the smart choice they made here, and this is what I said in my written review, my thoughts really haven't changed. It's the same thing I said there, is that I think what they did here, and this is where they it's what they both needed to do with this movie, and they kind of went above and beyond with, because they've never tried this hard for me, is that this is the first X-Men movie that felt cumulative on things that had happened before. Yeah, because the franchise has operated in such fits and starts. X2 is a great movie, But it's not great because X-Men 1 laid the foundations.
Yeah, it doesn't like build off of X-Men 1 the way like Spider-Man 2 really like sort of like comes out of Spider-Man 1 and needs Spider-Man 1 to be as significant as it is.
Yeah, and then X3 just scattered everything to the four corners.
Yeah, it did.
And then, X-Men Origins Wolverine did the story of X2 again, inexplicably, so that was weird. And then we had, X-Men First Class, which was a prequel again. And then we had the Wolverine, which was
prequel that, like, defied everything you knew about the continuity of the original series in the first place.
Right, pretty much. And so there's just, it's never been cumulative, and yet, this is the longest-running superhero movie series ever.
Yeah.
Ever! 14 years. Every other series would have been rebooted 5 times by now.
You weirdly, and I could totally see you making this argument, you counting Superman Returns as being part of the original Superman franchise.
Sure.
Unless you really wanted to like push that, which you totally could. That would be like the only one I could see. Like, you make.
But even then, that's only 5 movies.
Sure.
This is 7 or 8.
Oh, like I was thinking longest running in terms of chronology.
True. No, and in chronology, yes, Superman Returns as Superman 5. I like that idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's totally like it's a very long running movie franchise.
But is it fair to me to say this about X-Men?
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
So. And, I have been watching them my whole life, and I've generally liked these movies. There have been the ones that haven't been good, but there's only the one, I think, that really offended me, which was X-Men Wolverine.
No. It's not... X-Men 3 didn't, offend you? It was that bad? It did for me.
I mean, on some levels.
They kill Cyclops in, the first fucking 5 seconds of that goddamn movie. It's like, what the fuck?
Here's the thing, though. I grade The Last Stand on the curve of I have seen X-Men Origins Wolverine. You have not seen Origins Wolverine.
Sure. But still, because X-Men 3 came out first, so put yourself back in the mindset of, what the fuck did they do when they made that movie?
No, I agree.
That movie's really bad.
Yes, it is really bad. But in any case, so I just, why hasn't there been accumulation? It feels like after 14 years, you should be able to have some really emotional, heavy payoff, right? And I thought Days of Future Past brought the payoff that this series has been needing so long. So it's a sequel to First Class, and it pays off on the best stuff there, and that all feels so satisfying. As you said, Xavier's arc, good God, is that a phenomenal extension of where we left him.
Really good idea. Yeah. Especially by incorporating it with the Patrick Stewart stuff, and you keeping in mind where that character ends up being. It makes it really interesting, this idea of him being lost in that way, just so sort of distraught.
I think oftentimes, this is Xavier's origin story of how did he become the professor. Oftentimes those questions are irrelevant and we don't need to see them. They made it relevant here because to see how he would go from getting shot and betrayed by his best friend to being the man we knew in the original films, and a character who left a strong impression in those original films, that felt cumulative. And so this is what I was going to say. So it's a good First Class sequel on that level, but it is also in that way, it is a sequel to the first 3 movies, because that's also paying off on what we know about the Patrick Stewart character. It is a payoff to that character arc of seeing what kind of... It recontextualizes him to see kind of what pain he was dealing with, what kind of stuff was in his past, what he overcame, who he is now, how he came to have some of these ideas. And then I think the movie... the best scene in the movie to me is when young Xavier and old Xavier meet mentally. Yeah. That is a just beautifully done scene, and I think it really does feel like 14 years of storytelling are coming together there in old and young Xavier, and these 2 characterizations we know each are stronger for having the other in this movie, and that's the genius of the movie. It's not a genius movie, but that's where the movie is smart.
Yeah, that's the really powerful. Smart move the movie makes in telling a story, because we talked about it a little bit earlier in the podcast about these superhero movies that are coming out that on the face of it seem like they're going to be way overstuffed. It's you have to come up with a really good idea, a really good angle at which you can tell your story in order to manage all these different characters. I think a lot of the X-Men movies didn't figure out how to do that, and this one does figure out a very organic and natural and intelligent way to incorporate all these different characters together, especially the future and past versions of themselves, and get them to interact in a way that makes the plot feel natural and smart.
Yes, absolutely. And, I think you get that with other characters too. So, having the 2 Magnetos and having, a scene of... I think they do something really smart with the 2 Magnetos here, where you have... a Magneto in the future who has finally overcome all his back and forth, and he's willing to sacrifice himself. And so as he's lying there dying, I love the intercutting at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if the action technically, it's not on...
Because I've seen a lot of people saying it's the action's really good, and I'm like, no, it's a really well done scene, but the action's not good. It's really well done tension.
Well, and that's the thing that I think that's what they're going for.
I'm not saying this it's not a huge complaint with the movie. It's something that's I kind of want a little bit, because like none of the X-Men movies have had particularly good action other than maybe Wolverine.
I did think this had good action. I don't think the action itself was extraordinary. What was extraordinary about the last act to me was the cutting between past and future.
Yeah, but it's like, to me, it's like, I don't even, it's because it's not an action scene. It's a dramatic. It's a really dramatic scene.
It is.
So it's not action. It's just this dramatic tension that they built really well. So I wouldn't call it good action.
That's fine.
People misusing terms.
I think the term I used in my review was spectacle. I thought it was good spectacle and good drama.
Because he does lift a whole football field.
That's
doesn't
good.
Really need to. It's a kind of baffling thing, but he totally does it.
But anyway, what I was going to say is, as we have Magneto lying there dying and making amends with Xavier, in the past he is going full villain.
Yeah,
and I think that's really interesting. And it also, well, I'll talk about my thoughts on Magneto later, the past Magneto.
Sure.
But so I think they're paying off on that, and then I think. More than any, and so I feel like since the main core of the story is about Xavier and Magneto, and it's combining past and future, it really does feel like the entire weight of the series is in this story. Because I think the story even tacitly is acknowledging that this franchise has had good moments, it has had bad moments, these characters have made mistakes, these characters have made good decisions, and I think it's all kind of coming to a head here in that you have these old versions of the characters who have kind of suffered from a lot of bad things having happened, and they are sending Wolverine back and trying to influence we're at this pivotal moment where, we could go down the Last Stand path, or we could try something new.
Yeah.
And I think because that weight is there, this movie has an emotional heft to it that I never thought an X-Men movie would have. And so I was just taken aback by that. I wasn't crying in the theater or anything, but I was moved by the movie. I was invested in the characters. It felt like, not at the level of like a Spider-Man 2, but in that area where we're paying off on stuff. It's a franchise. It finally feels like a franchise.
Sure, yeah.
And I liked that. And, I think more than anything else, though, Wolverine, I think they use him really intelligently here. And I don't know, maybe you have different thoughts on that.
I actually kind of thought that, like, their use of Wolverine, it wasn't bad, but he felt like he was mostly just a plot device in the movie to me. There's just like, it felt like he had nothing to do. Well, it's like the only thing he really contributed is like he said the message, like that's obviously important. Then he told everyone about Quicksilver. It's like after that, like he only has he has two other opportunities to be useful in the movie in like the two kind of action scenes that they have. But in one, he gets a crippling flashback that prevents him from doing anything. So it's just like he just kind of passes out on the floor. And the other one, he just gets pinned down immediately, even though. This is like, he doesn't have the adamantium, so it's like the one time he can really fight Magneto, and he doesn't even really get to fight Magneto. This is kind of like you have this opportunity. We can finally see fucking Wolverine actually, like, your main hero character from the whole series, finally fight the main villain character, because every other time you couldn't have a plausible scenario. It's like you didn't even use it. Like, the ultimate scene you got out of it was better, because it keeps the focus on the movie on Charles and Magneto, but it is kind of like at some point, it just feels like Wolverine could have been anybody. Like they do. Since he is like, I see what you're saying with like the franchise.
You haven't let me say what I was going to say yet.
Well, yeah. But like if you're going to say it's like he kind of needs to be Wolverine because of his like the way he's been used in the franchise. But in terms of specifically this movie, there's nothing about the Wolverine character that it needs to be him. It could be.
That's actually not. That's not what I was going to say at all. Okay. Actually, so let me explain. Sure. I agree with most of what you're saying. He is not the focus here, and there's a lot of scenes where he is not important. But that's the point. I think.
That's fine, but it makes it feel weird. Okay.
Sure. But what I was going to say is that I think that also is a recognition of where Wolverine has come. He has been in every one of these movies, even First Class. He has a cameo, which I like to call back to here. That was funny. He's been in all of these. He's had an arc, and I think if you've watched them all the way through the Wolverine, his arc kind of climaxed. We started out with him being very rough, very mean, very roguish, not having friends or wanting to fight for anything. And he got to a point by the end of the Wolverine where he was at peace with who he was and what he had become. And that doesn't mean he has no character flaws or anything anymore. But he was at a point where he really could be a little more at peace with himself and at life. And that's where we find him in this movie, and he's doing what he needs to do because I think he has a sense of duty that is stronger than he's ever had before, and that feels like an organic payoff to what we've seen him go through in the series to me. Good moments and bad. Like, one of the things I liked about the Wolverine was, even though The Last Stand was a bad movie, they did follow up on what happened. They didn't just ignore it, they followed up on it, and as a result, Wolverine came out a stronger character from that movie because of it. And I think they follow that there. And what the role he's playing here is a role he could not have played at any other point in the series, which is that he can stand back and be egoless and be the guy who gets the job done and continues to be kind of, self-sacrificing. What he's doing is very dangerous, and he could get killed at any moment. All the, time travel stuff, there's a lot of... And then at the end, we have, the whole scene of him getting, flooded down in the... basically getting killed almost, and stuff like that. But he's just being the guide, and he is, they have what... And I think what he thematically adds to the movie is that this is what Xavier did for him in the first film, in the second film. I don't even remember what their relationship is in Last Stand. I haven't seen it since it came out. Whatever. But this is the kind of thing Xavier would do, where he would stand back and be a teacher to these people and try to help them find themselves. And Wolverine is doing that for these characters. He's trying to help them get into a place where they can do that. But I think the real payoff for his character, he is in the background, though.
Yeah.
And that's the point, is that he's stepping aside and letting these characters, drive the action and do what they need to do. But I think the payoff comes at the end, where I really, really liked the ending more than I ever thought I could, because I don't care about their Cyclops. I don't care about their Jean Grey. But I do care about Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and I care about what he cares about, because he's a good character. And that's one of the keys to good character writing, is that you will care about what a character cares about if that character is worth caring about. And he has become that. So when you get to the end, and he's gone through absolute hell over these, 7 movies, Wolverine. He's been through the ringer, and in Days of Future Past, he kind of goes through it at the end again, where he kind of is almost having to lay down his life near the end of the movie because of the shit that happens. And he finally gets a fucking reward for everything he's fucking been through. And that moment where he comes back and he sees Jean alive again, and he sees Cyclops alive again, and he's at a mature point enough that he's not doing a pissing contest with Cyclops anymore. And then they have my other favorite scene in the movie, which is his reunion with Patrick Stewart Xavier, and they're seeing each other as, I think, equals for the first time. That felt like the payoff to 14 years of X-Men. That felt like it feels like Days of Future Past should be the last movie in the series to me. That's the end. That is the end of the movie. Is Wolverine? The end of the series is Wolverine and Xavier coming together and setting out again to work as equals now and partners, and Wolverine having kind of accepted his place and finally getting some kind of reward for everything he's gone through and having some kind of contentedness. Like, I think I would, if I were Hugh Jackman, I would want to stop after this, because that's the right place to leave that character if you've been playing him for 14 years.
Yeah. I guess, I don't disagree with anything you've said, but I guess I didn't care about anything.
Okay.
It's that's all true, but I feel like... And it's like I said, I don't think my thinking of Wolverine just kind of feels like a plot device in the movie is not a huge complaint. It's just kind of what it is for me. But it's I do, in theory, I like the end of the movie. I like the last scene with Wolverine, but it's I so don't care about their version of Cyclops. It's I really like Cyclops, the character, but I don't give a fuck about the movie version. And I so don't care about movie Jean Grey. And I so have never bought the relationship between Wolverine and movie Jean Grey that's I don't know, him waking up in the future world. It just felt like, oh god, he's waking up in the shitty X-Men movies, because all the people are back, Rogue is there. It's I feel it's his character has had this arc, but it's I don't really like any of those movies, so it didn't do anything for me. It feels like that is something that is payoff for this franchise, but since I don't give a fuck about the franchise, I don't give a fuck about the payoff.
Well, and there's nothing that's going to vary from person to person. All I would say about that is that I think, and I think they're wise in how they use Jean Grey and Cyclops in that scene, is that I don't care about them as those characters in that moment. Yeah. They are symbols for Wolverine's happiness, and that he finally got something for himself, and not.
But it's something where it's I think those characters are so bad and uninteresting and so poorly done, and the relationship so poorly depicted, that I'm why would you care? I'm being Wolverine shouldn't care about them. It feels like it's bad character writing that they've had that's carried over. That's his relationship with those characters is so bad that it's I don't buy it. So it's I don't buy his satisfaction with it, I guess I would say.
Okay, but again, I think the emotional centerpiece of that scene isn't him and Jean Grey. It's him and Xavier.
Sure,
and him and Xavier. There are a lot of great scenes between the two of them in the original films.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess the movies themselves aren't interesting enough to me that even though their relationship has been fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's move on. I wanted to talk about Magneto and Mystique.
Okay,
in particular,
sure. Because
I thought Mystique's a weird case, and we'll get to that. thought they did better with her than they did last time, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So Magneto, obviously, his characterization in First Class was fantastic. Michael Fassbender is so good.
Yeah.
I wish we could have a whole movie of him hunting Nazis. Those scenes are fantastic. But the one thing they do in First Class, and it's a symptom that every X-Men movie falls into, X-Men 1, 2, 3, any of them that star Magneto, is that there's this line with a relatable villain where you have to give them enough sympathy that you can see that side, but they also have to be deplorable enough that you don't buy into the sympathy 100%, right?
Yeah.
And Magneto has to be on that line. And I think they've always tipped him slightly too much into sympathy in some of those movies, where and it's because they depict usually the human characters as such fucking caricatures. I'm always like,
sure,
Magneto has a point, guys. Magneto,
but Magneto does totally. I think that's. I like that. I think they do.
But I think he has a point, and then I also think just sometimes it's like it seems like everyone else is naive and not doing the right. At least Magneto's being proactive is always what I see.
Yeah.
It's like
no, but I think that's like purposeful because that's what. Like, that's the great thing about Magneto and Professor X, is that they are these figures that you see it, like, countless times in sort of, like, real-life civil rights movements, where you do have this schism about, you have your Charles Xavier-like people who, you know, they're more like Martin Luther King Jr., where it's like, we want to be peaceful, we want to find a way to adjust society and coexist in society without overturning everything and destroying everything, and then you have your more, like, reactionary, revolutionary figures that want to overturn everything and supplant the system and use violence and assert themselves in that way. And it's like every civil rights movement kind of has that argument with itself, and both sides have their merit. And it's like it is not necessarily wrong to be on Magneto's side, I think.
Well, and
I think there are a lot of actually legitimate arguments where it's like, within the context of the movies and the comics mythology, like, mutant kind is the replacement for mankind. It is the evolution. It is the next step. They are more powerful and more effective as a species, and so in a lot of ways, mankind should kind of just, you know, bend over and take it. You know.
Okay, but so I agree with everything you just said. Yeah. I'm trying to phrase my point, and it's a complex one. Sure. It's just something I feel when I watch these movies is that the problem though is when you pitch Magneto as the specific antagonist of your film, and it's just I think there's a line where I feel like. I like how they use him in Days of Future Past, but we'll get to that. I just thought when you watch First Class, his argument is so overwhelmingly better than Xavier's in that film because of what he's been through and what we're seeing going on in the world at that time, that I think when they make the pivot and he becomes this antagonistic figure near the end,
they make that jump way too hard in First Class.
Okay.
Like that, like when he becomes like that in a better like movie like franchise. That would have been saved for like the second movie, where you would have been able to see. Because I agree, they don't. The hard thing about Charles Xavier's stance, it's like you know, it's a metaphorical like sort of truth, is that it's so much harder to see and it's so much harder thing to accept because it's not as evident. Whereas like the cruelty of people like acting towards, you know, gays or blacks or like Jews or any like minority group is so much more present, and you want to react to it so much more violently that it's so hard to have the presence of mind to sort of see past it. That's like it's such a subtle thing that it's so hard to do.
No, and I agree.
They find a hard time conveying it in the movies, I think.
Well, but this is what I was going to say, is I thought Days of Future Past had both characters dialed in right. Like, I thought you saw Xavier's heroism here much more than you have before, because there's the specific arc about how can he become the guy who inspires people.
Yeah.
And that's what you needed to see. And I think with Magneto, all I was going to say is that I think the choice they make that's really good is they keep up the sympathy with him, you keep seeing his point of view, but I also think you see why, in this hypothetical, you know, antagonistic thing, what he does in the last act of the movie, I like that they let him be the villain in the not in the sense that he is completely wrong, but that he has his ideas and he fucking goes too far. And and I thought that was a beat with Magneto that they hit better here than they often have in the past in these films.
It's funny because I almost feel the opposite way, and maybe it's just because I have like a different sort of desire out of the Magneto character. Because I think you're right for the movie. I think the movie makes the right choice in using Magneto in that way, but I actually kind of dislike the way they use Magneto in terms of what I feel about the character. Is one, I feel like it's kind of a stretch for them. Like, I don't quite feel like they needed to have Magneto. Like in terms of like what Xavier needs to do in order to like get Mystique and all that stuff. They don't come up with a good reason for why they need to break Magneto out of prison. It feels like they need to do it because you need Magneto in the movie. It's like I don't feel like the script has a natural reason for it. It's like we have to have Magneto. There's no way we could convince Mystique. They don't even try to find Mystique or talk to Mystique or do anything with Mystique before they like let's go break out like the biggest supervillain, the dude who paralyzed me. This feels like a huge stretch.
No, I agree with that. It was. I didn't mind because we got Michael.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's something like it's something that like the movie. It's something where it's like it keeps the movie from being great to me. Where it has a bunch of little scripting problems like that. Where it's like it's not a big deal because it is something that needs to happen for the rest of the movie to happen. But you can find a more elegant way in the script to do it. But then later on, I also think it's like there are a lot of different points where Magneto, to me, behaves really out of character. In that it's like when he chooses with Mystique to try to kill Mystique when they find her in that one scene. That is a really baffling choice to me. That Magneto would not do that because I don't think sure he wants to save mutant kind, but I don't think he would save mutant kind at the expense of a mutant. He would save mutant kind at the expense of every single human being, but I don't think he would ever sacrifice a single mutant for that cause. That like he is so for mutant kind that the idea of like him killing Mystique like that to me seems really out of character. Okay. Like even for like how he's established in them, especially for how he's established in the movies. Because you're right, he's even more of a sympathetic character for how they portray him in the movies. So much so that in First Class, when he becomes a villain, it is really bizarre. And then also, and this is one where it's like, I think this is like probably my biggest scripting flaw with the movie is that they have the whole thing with the Sentinels and all that stuff, and so they set up very specifically. They have. I forgot what's the guy's name. The guy who's like the guy who makes the
Boulevard Trask.
Yeah, Trask. He has the fucking thing that's like this is the magic thing that allows us to detect mutants and kill specifically mutants, and this is this thing. And then later in the movie, they show Magneto sneaking onto the train that's transporting the Sentinels, and he sneaks wires into the Sentinels, and the wires go in to the specific thing that is the thing that makes its target specifically mutants. And so he's clearly reprogramming the Sentinels. You find out in the last scene that he's done that. And so to me, it's like the logical, obvious, brilliant fucking plan that Magneto would use is that if you want to stop the Sentinel plan, what do? You make them, you make them target humans instead of mutants. It feels like that was so clearly set up that and I thought it was such an elegant way to present it when he was sneaking onto the plane. I was like, that's brilliant. That must be what his plan is. That's so genius. That's perfect. Even though, like, I didn't have the foresight to see, is like, how would you then do the rest of the movie? I don't know. It's like, such a brilliant fucking scheme. Like, it would be the perfect way, like, literally the perfect way to shut down the Sentinel program. And then it's like, he just goes fucking crazy and just starts killing everyone and brings a fucking, like, baseball stadium and, like, holds the White House hostage. And it's like, you didn't need to do any of that. Like, all you're doing is making it, like, you're doing the worst possible thing because you're making the best argument for why the Sentinels need to exist because it's like you're fucking attacking the goddamn president.
But I think and all I'll say about that is that my only relationship with Magneto is Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender and the movies. And if he is an antagonist, and if you're going to keep using him as an antagonist in the future, if he is on any level of an antagonist, I feel like him overreacting in the way he overreacts works on that level because he doesn't go for the thing that would most elegantly and simply prove his point and save mutant kind. He wants to have people fear him. He wants to make the point. He has some megalomania to him too.
Yeah, but I feel like the way he's presented, like in the movies, especially, like he's such a crafty motherfucker that he doesn't have necessarily the degree of theatricality that a lot of times the character does. Even he puts on the fucking cape, but like. That's a baffling, like, that seems really weird to me. That's like, he seems so out of place. Why is Magneto the only dude who ever has a fucking costume on in these movies?
It's okay. I like the Magneto costume enough.
I think it's fine, but it's like, it's really weird when it's like, he's the only one, and he has easily, like, most flamboyant costume. But it's like, it feels like that's not something the character would do. It feels like he's wearing the costume because Magneto has the costume in the comics.
I think it absolutely feels like something he would do in this movie because he's been in prison for 10 years. He didn't get to make his point. He wants humanity to know he's there, and he wants them to fear him. That's his motivation here.
It's like, but, like, it feels like he's so, he's so willing to sort of, like, I think be in the shadows for everything else, that he's so sneaky and crafty about everything else he does. There's no reason why he would make this ridiculously grandiose megalomaniac gesture of like putting a fucking football or baseball stadium, circling the White House and holding the president hostage and, like, you know, controlling the cameras and stuff. Like, that feels so out of character.
Okay. It didn't feel out of character to me. I thought it worked. I thought
I think it's something that, again, I do think in the context of the movie, it does need him to operate in that antagonist role. Like I said, like, if he did come up with that plan to stop the Sentinels, like, the problem with that in the script would be that it's like, it's a brilliant thing. It would be awesome. But then you don't have, like, a movie anymore. Because there's no thematic point to make with it. It's just like, no, Magneto's a goddamn genius, and that's totally, like, the perfect thing to do. Like, it would be bad. I guess you could have him fighting, like, with Xavier, because Xavier's like, you shouldn't be killing humans either. But even then, it would be kind of like that'd be a very hard point to make at some point.
Yeah, so I don't know.
It's not a huge flaw with the movie. Like, I think I'm making it out to be, like, it bothered me more than it really did, but it is something that is, like I said, there are a couple of things along the lines.
Here's my
Magneto that are scripting flaws.
And I will say my one logic problem with Magneto, the one thing that does bother me on some level, is that I think the action he takes in that last act is big enough that I don't believe
that they would shut down the Sentinels.
No, just because thematically I like the point that it's Mystique's small act of heroism that inspires them and everything and changes their minds, but small acts of heroism don't make the news.
Yeah, and it would not sway. Like, you can see, it is such a ridiculous fucking thing he does. Like, imagine if that happened in real life, dude. Like, that would be the craziest fucking shit. There is no way we would not just destroy half the world in some crazed frenzy by launching nukes everywhere in some mad attempt to kill mutants somehow.
Yes, I know. Oh well, it's it's fine. It's not the worst.
Yeah, it's not the biggest flaw. It's not Prometheus, but it's still an error.
It's fine, but whatever.
Michael Fassbender seems to be just getting involved with scripts that have odd uses of his character.
But hey, either way, he's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, he is great. Like, every scene he's in is fucking incredible.
Like, I am, even though this felt like it should be the last movie in the series to me, I do want to see more First Class movies.
Yeah, it's like I'm really glad that they're continuing with the old cast, because it's like, I do want to see what they're going to do with those characters.
Yeah, I want to see more of McAvoy and Fassbender, and
hopefully they can find, get like a younger, like, actual First Class, like, Cyclops and shit in there.
They have said that's their plan with Apocalypse, is that we'll meet young Cyclops and everything. It happens in the 80s. So it should be fun. But anyway, let's talk about Mystique a little bit, because when I rewatched First Class, Mystique is a weird character in that movie.
Yeah, especially if, like, she's just a weird character within the movie, but especially if you know the comic book character.
Especially if you've watched X-Men 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot. Yeah, she's like all over those movies, too.
They got Mystique right in Bryan Singer's X-Men movies. She's actually I watched, 1 and 2, and even though I don't like 1, I like how they use Mystique every time in the Bryan Singer films. Mm-hmm. I think he knew how to have that mysterious, fun, wily, kind of silent
sexy
character.
But, like, dangerous and really scary character.
She's a really good character in those. But when you get to First Class, she's not Mystique at all. She's just
like really cute
girl. She's like a teenage girl who has powers, and she's really worried about them. And what's weird to me is that it's not a bad character. It's a well done characterization. Jennifer Lawrence is a good actress, but then she turns blue, and I'm like, does not compute. Does not compute. This is weird. This is really weird. And when she's in Blue Mystique stuff and she's giving, monologues to Xavier, it's like, no, that's not right. She's just a weird character.
And it's like, and for fuck's sake, her name is Mystique. The whole point of the goddamn character is you don't know who she is. It's like, she has been alive for, like, over 100 years. You don't know what, like, she looks like, really. Like, she can become anybody. She can do anything. You don't know, like, what her allegiances are. You don't know what her morality is. You don't know if she's necessarily a villain or she's necessarily a good guy. You have no fucking clue, because she's fucking Mystique. She's supposed to be mysterious. That's the point of the character. And it's like an X-Men First Class. And in this movie, it's like, you know everything about her. She's, like, the character. You know more about Mystique in these movies than you do, like, any other fucking character.
Well, so here's what I want to say about Days of Future Past. There are some things they just can't fix with this characterization because of who she was in First Class.
Especially,
But I thought they did a better job with her here.
I agree.
What I would say is that, and where it clicked for me was actually in her first scene, because that scene on the army base, that is a Bryan Singer Mystique scene. She doesn't talk until the very end. She's changing, and you don't always know if she's in a costume or not. What's going on with that? It's very much like one of the Rebecca Romijn scenes from the first 2 movies, and it's a good Mystique scene. And we get a couple more like that. She does not talk nearly as much. They don't usually have her talk while in the blue makeup. Like, she's much more quiet. She's much more physical in how she moves and stuff. But they've also, she's still a character. They can't just make her silent again,
Yeah.
And I like, again, it's weird because I like her characterization here. I like how she plays into the plot and stuff. But there are still some scenes where it's just like everyone's talking about Raven, and it's like, Xavier, you never knew her in the original movies. Yeah. What are you doing? Like, Patrick Stewart never talked about her. He never said Raven. I don't think he even knew Mystique existed.
Yeah.
So it's weird on that level. But, and I think, honestly, the biggest problem may be at this point, and this is a weird problem, I think Jennifer Lawrence, as good of an actress as she is, she's miscast for this.
I agree, yeah.
And it's not her fault. It's just, she's a really, kind of strong-willed, forceful personality actress, and that's why she's a great actress, but that's not who Mystique is.
Yeah, it's like she doesn't play this really subtle antagonist role.
No.
This just doesn't, it's not right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not her fault. It's a casting thing, and obviously for Days of Future Past, she had to be a big part of it because Jennifer Lawrence is arguably the biggest star in the world right now. So, yeah, that's, it's just a thing, but I thought they handled her better here. I thought, honestly, they probably did as well by her as they could based on where they took her in First Class.
Sure.
It did not actively weird me out in the way it did in that movie. A couple of scenes maybe, but not overall as much. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Is that fair?
Yeah. That it's like... Yeah, they had already fucked up the character pretty bad in First Class, as far as I'm concerned, so they brought it back a lot better in this one.
Yeah. So, anyway, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here with all that.
Yeah.
But yeah. I want to talk about some of the visual design elements in the film.
Sure.
I thought it was really well directed.
Yeah.
I thought the cinematography was great. I thought, particularly, I loved how Bryan Singer illustrated the apocalyptic future. I thought that was a
future
cool...
where it's always overcast and sad and...
I just thought it looked cool. There were a lot of cool visual design elements. The kind of temple where they send Wolverine back in time was neat.
Yeah.
And I thought, I did think the one straight action scene in the movie you have really is the early one where you have some of the mutants fighting the Sentinels.
Yeah.
I thought that was well done because if you go back to the original movies, not so much X2, definitely X1, it creeps into X2 a little bit. Bryan Singer was still learning how to shoot action, and certainly the world was still learning how to shoot superhero movie action, and it's doubly tough when you have these mutants, and there's a million of them, and they all have individual powers, and so the original X-Men movies kind of always just grind to a halt when there's a new power. They stop, they display the power, and then they go back. This one... There's none of that. They show the power through action. It's very fluid. And I thought that first action scene was fluid and exciting and fun. And it's not, I wouldn't call it great. It's not, something from Captain America the Winter Soldier. But it was good. It's a good mutant action. That's
sure.
All
my only problem, and it's kind of a problem I have with all the future stuff. I have two really big problems with it. Is that one, it's it does the thing where it's you have half a dozen mutants and none of them are any real characters. It's some of them it's I don't even know. There's the native, I think Warpath is named, the Native American guy. I don't even know what his power was. I don't know who he is. He never did anything. He was just it's just a Native American dude. He's just kind of there. But it's they have all those characters and it's but they're just kind of there, it feels for that fight scene and to have those fight scenes in the future moments. And they don't have any character, even though they bring back, some Iceman and Colossus that were in the other movies. I barely remember anything. I vaguely recall Iceman and Rogue having some sort of relationship in the movies. That's it. They could have recast Iceman and I wouldn't have even noticed.
I thought they did decently by Iceman in those films. He's a big part of X2.
Yeah, it's I don't. It's been a while since I've seen X2, so I don't remember that much. It's but yeah, it's just something where I don't. It just feels weird that all the actual action scenes where it's there are people fighting in the movie all involve characters that have no development and I don't care about. So it's it makes it hard to get really invested in the fight scene. And something about I really don't like how they use, specifically with Colossus and Iceman in particular, they somehow with the whole premise of Kitty Pryde being able to send people back in time inexplicably, because that's not, I don't understand how she can do that, but they find a way with that mechanic to show characters dying in horribly excessively gruesome ways fucking twice.
I liked it.
Twice. And it's for me, it's something that, and this is not just my complaint is not isolated to this movie, and I totally recognize that, where it's something that really frustrates me about superhero stuff in general these days, is that it shouldn't have if I'm watching a fucking X-Men movie and there's an 8-year-old kid in the audience and I start getting uncomfortable because of the stuff that's happening in the movie, and I'm a 6 or 8-year-old kid should not be watching Colossus get ripped into in this incredibly brutal graphic fashion. That's not appropriate. It's that's not the way it should be. Like, it's a comic book movie. Like, it shouldn't, it's kind of one of the things that I don't like about Man of Steel, is it being that violent and dark. It's like, it doesn't feel like it has any sort of, like, joy or levity. That's like, it's a movie that I could watch with, like, if I went over, like, I had, like, babysitting, like, 6 and 8 year old boys, I wouldn't feel comfortable watching this movie with them in the room, It's like, I don't like that. It's something that comic books are doing with superheroes, where it's like, they're very violent. It's something that's been happening since, like, the 90s with superheroes. It's, like, really violent, really gory, a bunch of, like, dismemberments and stuff. It's like, that's not what I want from a superhero thing. It's really just sort of, like, disappointing that it's like, they don't just do it once, they do it fucking twice. It's like, with the same characters. It's like, I don't want to see Iceman be melted or get his fucking head cut off. No, don't. Stop.
Well, anyway, I did like the design of the Sentinels a lot, too, in the future scenes. They were cool villains, I thought. And one other technical thing is this is John Ottman scored this movie, and that means this is the first X-Men film to be scored by someone who scored another X-Men film. Which is part of the reason these movies have never felt cumulative.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, Days of Future Past, a lot of the accumulation comes from having John Ottman, the themes from X2, which I really like that score. I recognize them immediately here. The music in this movie is great, even if you don't recognize the themes. I think it's a really, really good score. So that's all good. But yeah, and I see where you're coming from with the violence argument, and yeah, I mean, it's one of those tonal things. Just everyone's doing it now, though. It's
just really... I just really hate it. It's like,
it's like that shot I mentioned, with Gwen Stacy at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's like, why did you depict that so fucking graphically?
Yeah, it's just too much. It doesn't need to be like that. Yeah.
Oh well. In any case, what else do we want to talk about with this? Anything else with Days of Future Past?
It's like, but seriously, how the fuck can Kitty Pryde project people's consciousness backward through time? Wait, that's not. That's not her power. That's not her power. Like, that's not even close. I know in Days of Future Past that she's the one who goes back, but it's like, I can see her phasing herself through time. That is kind of related. That's like a natural extension of what her power could be. It's like this, like them meditating in this temple and her like hands as the like power beams. It's like, that's not fucking her power. Like, if it doesn't need, because you only had like Kitty Pryde barely in X3. You don't need to bring. You could have had just made up a character that could do that.
Well, I mean, I think they want to do that to honor the comic arc because she is.
But that's not what happens in the comic arc. Like, Wolverine's not the one who goes back in time. So
no, but I mean, just having Kitty Pryde there, especially because she is a character who was in the series before, however briefly.
Yeah, but it's like to me, it's just a really. It's confusing to me sitting there watching because it was like, what is she doing? How can she do? Like, this is not. And it's only because I know who... Like, if you didn't know who Kitty Pryde is, you'd have no issue with it, because they never tell you what her actual power is. They just say, it's like, oh yeah, I can send people's consciousness back through time. It's like, what? Like for me, it's like, no, Shadowcat. No, you don't. You walk through fucking walls. It's kind of a different thing.
I don't know. Is it really that much bigger a jump that phasing powers can be used for phasing through time herself versus someone else?
I think like the presentation is really different to me. That's like it's her like sitting and like projecting these like beams of magic energy into Wolverine's head and projecting his consciousness back through time. Okay. Also, it makes no fucking sense that Wolverine is the only one that goes back in time. Like, they give the argument that it's like, well, he has the healing factor. It's like nobody else can make it, but it's like. But his healing factor just literally heals his body. Like, I don't buy that, like... I still think Xavier would be the one who'd most be able to mentally, like, handle the mental strain of going back through time. It doesn't seem... It's like... She says, like, your mind would snap. But the only way that actually makes sense for Wolverine is that if his mind literally, physically broke into pieces, and then it could come back together.
Okay.
It's like, they're just, again, they're not big flaws, but it's like, it's a bunch of little ones like that with like Magneto and stuff like that. It's like, stuff that they should have like figured out a better way to do it, you know?
Okay.
It's like...
So, here's a question.
Okay.
While you're nitpicking the little logic things. I mean, does it bother you that they didn't do any explanation for how Xavier's alive again?
It's like, dude, if they didn't explain how the fuck First Class exists with those other movies, like, it frustrates me, but it's not like, it's just like, it's so far gone at this point that it's like, It's like the X-Men movie continuity should not be almost as difficult for me to follow as the X-Men comics continuity. You know, that should not be... Like, the X-Men comics legitimately have a more solid continuity at some point than these movies, because they've been patched up so many times in the comics. It's like, the movies, it's just like... They don't have... Since it's like, it's so, you know, rarely iterated upon that it's like, you don't have this mechanism to sort of like fix all these little continuity holes. It's like... I don't know what the continuity of these movies is at any point.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm glad they didn't do that, because I just think I think that the beginning of the movie moves at a good clip, and if you stop to try to explain that,
I'm glad that they didn't stop and explain it, but it's it's just a bad situation to be in. They made that's the best decision to make, but it doesn't make any sense how Xavier's...
Well, and I think part of the good thing about Days of Future Past is that things are reset to a point now where going forward, continuity will not be this massive thing hanging over everyone's head.
As long as you just have to... You can never bring back the other characters. Like, you can't bring back characters from the future ever again. You can't do that. Because it's like, because now, based on the end of the movie, because they make a huge change at the end of the movie, where it's like Wolverine gets picked up by fucking Mystique instead of Stryker. So it's like, presumably that means he never went through the Weapon X program, which changes like everything, because the X-Men movies were all about Wolverine.
No, none of the other X-Men movies happened. Like,
they just can't have happened. So,
well, even if you take Wolverine out of the equation, you know, Jean and Cyclops being there that's more than just the Last Stand events. I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on.
So it's like, but especially like Wolverine not having gone through Weapon X means it's like, he never would... I mean, he wouldn't know any of these people probably anyways, or at least he would only know them through completely different means, because it's like he never would have gotten involved with the X-Men in the same way, because he would never have been in the situation he was in at the beginning of X-Men 1 if he had not gone through the Weapon X program. Like, his life would be completely different from that point on.
Right. And so they do explain he retains his memories through all this. That was one of the things they said at the beginning.
Yeah, he retained... Although that makes absolutely no sense about how he would lose the memories that his... Because a Wolverine existed and lived from the point in which he got picked up, and like that, all those years up to where the apocalypse future would have happened, and like where that point in time where he wakes up, there is a Wolverine that obviously existed because everyone knows him. So where did that consciousness go? What happened to those memories? Why does he not have those memories? Because he would have lived through all of that time.
That's true.
It's like it's time travel logic that makes no sense.
Well, it's the same thing as Back to the Future. Marty goes back and doesn't have... When he gets Back to the Future at the end of Back to the Future, he doesn't know... He's surprised to see the new car in the garage and all that stuff, right? He doesn't know what those intervening 16 years are.
But he literally traveled through time. Wolverine's consciousness got sent back in time. So I think that's a totally different situation where it's like... They're kind of... Like, because they killed... Presumably, they destroyed this Wolverine consciousness that existed in the past, which would have then made it so that's like a whole weird loop thing.
I don't want to... We gotta get out of this.
But it's like the continuity of like the time travel stuff doesn't make sense. It obviously doesn't make... Like, it makes... I think they made the best choice by like doing it the way they did, because it gives you the sweet moment at the end where you follow the Wolverine character all the way through. So it makes kind of emotional sense if it doesn't make any logical sense.
You just described every time travel story ever written.
Well, yeah, but I mean but there's like degrees at which...
Okay, I don't know. Sure. But
you can have time travel make some degree of sense. It's like theirs was just like... You had to make all these sort of like bullshit concessions to like... You had to just make up powers for Shadowcat. You just had to make up a reason why it only has to be Wolverine that didn't make any goddamn sense to me. You make up some bullshit about like this time bridge that connects them just so you can do this thing where you have like the intercutting, so you can have that tension in both the present timeline, like what you're showing, and the future thing.
Okay.
And then you can have the whole gap. Like it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So let's wrap this discussion up.
All right.
You've only shouted about the movie for 15 solid minutes now. Did you like it? Let's remind people.
Yes, it's a good movie. It's a movie that has a lot of issues, but it's still good. Like most movies have a lot of issues. It's still a good movie.
All right. So most of those aren't issues for me. I really like this movie. Definitely recommend it. You know, not the best superhero movie of the year because Captain America: Winter Soldier exists, but this is the best X-Men has ever been by a wide margin, I think.
I think this is more or less true. Like, its only real competition is probably Wolverine.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, I think this is at least a head above that. I mean, it's more consistent.
I enjoyed parts of Wolverine more than I enjoyed any parts of this movie, but...
Okay.
We should talk a little bit, because it's like the thing that everyone's talking about in the movie is the Quicksilver scene.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I liked that. I thought what they did with that was interesting because, you know, it felt like almost like the habit of the older X-Men movies where they would bring in a mutant for 5 minutes and then kick him off screen. But I thought they did a good enough job of establishing him as a character, establishing his powers, having a fun scene with him where it felt substantive, and then he leaves, and, it doesn't feel like it was just this one-off cameo. It was substantive enough. The reason why he left made enough sense, and they didn't try to... If they had tried to keep him sticking around after that, he would have been useless for the movie.
He would have been, he's the most powerful fucking character, other than, Xavier could stop him, but
I'm not talking about on an action level. He has nothing to do with the rest of the story.
But they could have, been hey, dude, if you stick with us, some seriously crazy fucking shit's gonna happen.
But then you would have had to figure out every scene, what's Quicksilver doing in this scene?
That's what I'm saying. It's they made the right choice to have him leave the movie, but I don't think that, the script has it's the same thing. The script has this problem all over the place. It's it doesn't make any logical sense within the context of the film why they wouldn't just try to get Quicksilver to stay with him, because he is so fucking powerful in this movie.
But how did you let's just back up. How did you like him in the movie?
I liked it. Yeah, okay. I thought it was a good. Especially obviously the standout scene where he's running around and everyone's it's from his perspective. That's the best scene in the movie as far as I'm concerned. It's really, really either that or the climax scene with the intercutting. Those are the two best moments of the movie where it's so creative. It's really well done.
No, I liked it. I liked Evan Peters in the role. I thought his visual design was kind of lame, but
he's in that costume for 5 seconds on screen, so it's fine.
I just thought even his hair looked really fakey.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, and they've talked about they want to make him more of a main character going forward. I would like to see that.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. And I was kind of wondering before the movie came out, because they kind of previewed that scene in the trailer. I was wondering, why would they go to Quicksilver? Couldn't Wolverine just break in? I thought they did a good enough job showing how they all work together to do that.
And since Wolverine doesn't have his adamantium claws, he's the most powerful.
Yeah. All right, so that's X-Men Days of Future Past. Good movie.
Good movie, yeah.
I'm done.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
In Salvanur that happened at the end.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is, so that scene did nothing for me. But.
Yeah, it's one of, I think at some point they need to maybe, put a little bit more into this post-credit scene, so it's it's not my job at the end of all these movies to be okay, yeah, that's Apocalypse. He's going to be the villain in the next one. He's basically the first mutant, and that was him in the past building the Egyptian pyramids.
I mean, I got that it was a mutant in the past building the Egyptian pyramids.
It took me a little bit. It was I thought it was is this some weird shit happening somewhere else in the future timeline or something? I didn't get right away. That's oh wait, no, that's actually just Egypt. Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, next week we'll talk about something. We'll figure it out later. I'm tired. I need to stop podcasting.
Okay.
All right.
So I guess this is it. This is the end.
No, not the end of the... For today.
Oh!
Don't for today.
Oh, okay. I thought you were I'm done with podcasting.
I also just literally said we're going to be back next week.
Yeah, but after you said that, you're I'm done podcasting. It's Jonathan. Just if you say you're going to be done podcasting, just